those motions. You might sometimes hear folks refer to that as the stack. Think of the stack as an onion. Ogres have layers, onions have layers, and motions have layers. At the center of the onion is the main motion, which is the proposal in the agenda. As people make motions like to amend, refer to committee, extend debate, etc., that adds outer layers to the onion. We must then peel back those outer layers in order to get to the main motion. The Documents tab, in addition to that parliamentary procedure chart, also has the full agenda, the virtual meeting instructions, and the current standing rules and constitution. Please note that it may take a few moments for these items to load. If you are wishing to speak to an item of business, you will click the Speaker Pool tab. There, you will select your purpose for speaking, such as a speech in favor, a speech against, what kind of motion you're making. And then in the text field, you'll enter the item number, such as F.1 or F.1 Jones Amendment. In the All Messages tab, we will have a posted message that says what the current item of business is to help folks follow along with where we are. If you are selecting the other parliamentary option, you do need to include what motion you are wanting to make in that text field. If you're joining from a multi-member household where you have multiple folks joining the meeting, but only one of you has joined the Zoom, please make sure to put the name of the account that is connected to the Zoom in that text field so we know who to unmute. You can easily see your Zoom name by opening up the participants list in the Zoom. Lastly, if you are submitting a point of order, a parliamentary inquiry, or a request for information, it's very helpful if you give a brief explanation of your point or inquiry in that text field. However, not doing so will not prevent you from being recognized. Once you have submitted your request to speak, it gets sent to the speaker pool, and our speaker pool moderation staff will take care of categorizing the request for me to then assign folks the floor. When I recognize you to speak, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom to allow the Lumi tech to easily find you and request that you unmute. You can choose whether or not to have your camera on when you're speaking. Please make sure that you test your microphone before you're recognized by going to More in the Zoom, going to More, Settings, Audio Settings, Test Mic. If you're not prepared to speak when you're recognized, we will move on to the next person. When you're speaking, please introduce yourself and give your pronouns. Please remember that debate must be civil and it must be germane, which means relevant to the item of business currently before us. We set debate times by a total number of minutes for speeches in favor and against. So if debate time is set at 6 minutes, that means 3 minutes for speeches for and 3 minutes for speeches against. Neutral items like a point of order or subsidiary motions come out equally from both sides. As we move through the meeting and speakers are recognized and items of business are disposed of, we will be archiving your request to speak. When your request has been archived, you'll see a response from the moderator indicating that's happened. If you submit a request to speak and you later change your mind, you can select retract a request and use the text field to indicate which request you're retracting. You don't need to retract a request that has already been archived. In addition, we'll be archiving items as they're no longer relevant. So if you're wanting to postpone indefinitely and somebody else makes that motion, we'll take care of archiving your request for you. Sometimes motions require a second. We'll be using the raise hand function in the Zoom to second motions. You can raise your hand as soon as the motion is made, and I'll also make sure to ask if there's a second if there haven't been any. In the same way, sometimes I will ask for unanimous consent of the body to do something rather than needing to take a vote. This sounds like me saying, is there any objection to? And if you wish to object, please use the raise hand function in the Zoom. When it comes time to vote, the vote will automatically appear on your screen. And when that vote appears on your screen, you will select how you wish to vote. You can change your vote just by clicking the other option, and you can completely cancel your vote by clicking cancel. Okay, folks, we are going to go ahead and get started. My name is Jessie Lipp. I use they, them pronouns, and I'm the presiding officer for this meeting. So I'm calling to order the second main meeting of the 2025 WSFS Business Meeting at 11:01 a.m., by which I mean 9:01 a.m. Pacific. Sorry. Before we begin,
you probably saw that we were looping a video of my introductory remarks from the July 4th session. So I'm going to be skipping over most of that and breezing through the rest of today in order to save us some time. If you have not been able to attend one of the previous sessions, I'm sorry that I'm not able to give the same kind of introduction, how things work, that I've been able to do at those. We are very pressed for time, but all the information in my usual introductory spiel is in the documentation. So, business meeting staff, we have them. They're great. Their names are on the screen. Um, we have a Discord. Please join it if you're able to. You don't have to have a Discord account already or have used Discord before to join it. There's a help channel there. They are very helpful in the help channel. The captioning link is on the homepage of the Lumi platform to the 3Play live captioning, and we also have auto captions in the Zoom. I think I said that in an opposite order of how I gave Warren slides for it. Apologies. And lastly, please make sure to test your microphone before you are recognized to speak. We do not have time to live troubleshoot any tech difficulties that you may be having. Balloting for the Mark Protection Committee and the Trial Committee will take place at the close of this session, and the vote will be open until noon Pacific on Monday. There are statements from the candidates in the Discord, and also PDFs with those statements have been uploaded or will be uploaded shortly to the Lumi platform. The Documents tab also includes a summary of the discussion that happened at the executive session related to the trial committee for folks who were not able to attend but would like some of that information before voting. So we are going to, well, since we have this on the screen, I guess I'll do this before we do the test vote. So at the last session, we created a committee called the Sparkle Unicorn Committee, which is looking at the creation of a whistleblower's charter and a code of ethics. So that committee is going to be chaired by Alana Vincent, and the members will be Alan Bond, Mark Godden, Kimberly Hansen, Farah Mendelson, Michelle Morell, Bree Reeves, Gail Turman, and Patty Wells. And as I said at that meeting, if they want to rename themselves to, I don't know, the Robot Committee, they can do that. So we are going to go ahead and do a test vote to get started. And so today's test vote is going to be Lord of the Rings, books or movies. And so we can go ahead and open that test vote. Okay, and we can go ahead and close that. So we have 75% of folks prefer the books and 25% of folks prefer the movies. Great to know. Okay. The first item of business that we are going to be taking up today is the report from the committee to look at D.8. And I'm going to be recognizing Els, I believe, to give a brief report from that committee.
Hello, everyone. Hello, everyone. My name is Els. My pronouns are they, them. We completely revised the resolution. In our little group, which was of
I
people
am not hearing sound from Els.
This is strange
Can
because I do
somebody
see
I
else?
thingy.
I can hear else. That Jesse, that might be just you.
Anybody else hear them? Oh, Olaf
Uh,
can.
okay. Can other
Oh,
people? I'll wait until I get a explicit.
Nope, that was 100% my fault. I forgot that I
Okay.
had Zoom muted, so I didn't have to listen to myself for an hour. I'm really sorry about that.
I mean, fair. So we're on a committee with like Cliff Dunn, myself, Mara Michaud, Kate Sikor, Priya as and Priya. I'm sorry, last name's not going to work. We completely rewrote it because we decided that we wanted it to be more pointed and more generalized and also usable for the future, because we're talking about AI today, but we want this resolution to also speak to tomorrow. And what we do with this resolution, because the main idea is still the same, we want two things from future Worldcons, and that's something we ask from them. We don't require it from them. And we want them to have policies and relevant training about the ethical use of technologies they may use. I did see some discussion that about the mention of the code of conduct. That's just a term we use here. If the Worldcon is like, hey, we have a different policy that works better, that's not a code of conduct, please don't try to not fall over the very specific wordings, because different conventions do things differently and might have different places where they put specific rules. The main thing that we want to achieve with this is that we as a business meeting say, hey, we would love it if Worldcons take the ethical use of new technologies into account, and that they provide that in policies, and that they provide training for the people working on the Worldcon. I yield.
Okay, and so to clear, the committee is recommending
Yeah.
An amendment by substitution with the text on the screen. As this comes from committee, it does not require a second. I am going to recommend a debate time of 6 minutes for the entirety of D.8. Is there any objection to 6 minutes? You can use the raise hand function in the Zoom. Seeing none, debate time is set at 6 minutes. And I'm going to recognize Mara for a speech in favor.
Hi, I'm Mara, she, they. I think of this as a black mirror of resolutions, in that it asks us all to give at least as much thought to the ethics and consequences of actual technology as our fiction writers give to future tech. Because AI isn't the first, and it won't be the last technology to hurt people in the rush to use it, like radium watch dials and high-dose X-ray machines to size children's shoes. And AI isn't the first technology to be demonized before it could prove itself. Those same X-rays went on to become low-dose CAT scans, and nuclear pharmacies use radium and other similar technologies to diagnose and treat disease every day. So I ask you to vote for this resolution, because if we here can't resolve to use technology carefully and thoughtfully, who can? Thank you, I yield.
Hey, thank you. That was a speech in favor. Us is the amendment by substitution with the text on the screen. So right now, that's what we're debating. And we will take a vote on whether or not to amend the text by substitution. If the amendment by substitution passes, we will then take up adopting D.8 as amended. And if the amendment by substitution fails, we will go back to D.8 with the original language. Okay. I'm going to recognize Stevani Ross for a speech against.
Yes, hi, Stevani Ross, they, them. I feel that the original wording of D8 was about a specific threat, which exists right now in generative AI, which has been an issue this year and is also a very large issue in society right now, and that the rewording, while the intent is admirable, it is so nebulous that basically whatever position you have, you can see it as being within the ambit of what it thinks is okay, basically. And I feel that's something more focused on what we need right now, is a better choice. Therefore, I oppose amending this. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against. I'm going to recognize Alan Bond for an amendment.
I move to amend this to remove code of conduct and replace it with convention policies.
Okay, so the amendment is to strike code of conduct and insert convention policies. Is there a second? You can use the raise hand function in the Zoom to second. Okay, I do see several seconds. I'm going to ask, is there any objection to just immediately adopting this amendment? If anybody objects to just immediately adopting this amendment, please raise your hand in the Zoom. Okay, and seeing none, we're just going to take that as done. Okay. So we are back to the amendment by substitution as amended. Okay, I see. Okay, I'm gonna recognize Cliff Dunn.
Can you hear me?
Yep.
Okay. While I agree that this makes the the resolution more broad, Mixed Chair, I also believe that is a feature, not a bug. Yes, a specific problem brought this to our attention, but that specific problem is not the only thing we're going to run into over time. There will be other problems, and I think we would all prefer not to be redebating this general principle every 5 years, and I suspect that's where technology is going to bring us, so this is better. Thank you.
Okay, that was a speech in favor. I do have a motion to end debate in the speaker pool on just the amendment by substitution. I don't have any other requests to speak on this item in the speaker pool, so we are going to go ahead and move to a vote on the amendment by substitution to D.8, and we can go ahead and open that vote. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 100 in favor and 11 against, D.8 is amended with the amended by substitution to become now the text on the screen. And so the item in front of us now is the adoption of the amended D.8. Okay, I do not see anybody requesting to speak on the amended D.8. I am going to give you all a few seconds to see if, just to make sure, see if anybody wishes to speak on it. Okay, I don't see anybody wishing to speak. And so we will go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of D.8 as amended, and that text is on the screen. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote with 93 in favor and 20 against. D.8 is adopted. Okay. So moving into the rest of what we have, the rest of what we have ahead of us, folks. In case you are unaware, this is where things stand. We have 9 ratifications and 22 constitutional changes to get through in the next 2 meetings. I have a procedural rule change that I'm going to suggest to hopefully help us get through things. I am recommending that any motions requiring a second, not including the proposals which have already been submitted in the agenda, require a total of 3 seconds. So if someone makes a motion, instead of requiring only a single member to second the motion, it would require a second from 3 other members to be properly before us. So first, I'm going to ask if there is any objection to adopting a special procedural rule that any motions requiring a second now require 3. I do see a couple of objections. So we are going to move to a vote. This is essentially a motion to suspend the rules, which is neither debatable nor amendable and requires a 2/3 vote. And so we are going to go ahead and, when Lumitech is able to, open the vote on the adoption of a special procedural rule requiring 3 seconds. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 87 in favor and 22 against, that is a 2/3 majority, and so the special procedural rule is now adopted. And so all motions other than those in the agenda, which have already been submitted, will require 3 seconds. Notably, this does mean that all of you people who love to make the joke about thirding and fourthing motions are actually now correct. And so I will officially no longer be annoyed by such jokes until such time as we have dispensed with this rule, at which point I will resume being pedantically annoyed when people make that joke. So with that out of the way, we have basically 375 minutes of real time to accomplish the items of business ahead of us. So far, we have been averaging a bit over 3 minutes of real time for every minute of debate time. And so the debate times that I'm proposing are based on this. So these are the debate times that I am proposing for the ratification of business passed on. For E.1, missing in action, 2 minutes. For E.2, the way we were, 6 minutes. E.3, required license agreement, 4 minutes. E.4, MPC procedures, 4 minutes. E.5, Hugo administration and site selection monitoring, 6 minutes. E.6, editorial alignment, 2 minutes. E.7, no more retros, 8 minutes. E.8, belated finalists, 6 minutes. And E.9, cleaning up the art categories, 8 minutes. As a reminder, we will be taking up E.9 at the July 25th session due to the scheduling constraints of one of the original proposers. So, is there any objection to the debate times that I have proposed? Okay, I do see an objection, so we are going to go ahead and move to to voting on these debate times. So we can go ahead and open the vote. If you are in favor of my proposed debate times, we'll go ahead and open the vote on that. This only requires a simple majority.
It's like, and now we motion that there's a second. Is there an objection to extending the second to the debate? And
no, I'm not even paid for this shit. This is like, maybe it's okay for me.
So the thing that I can't figure out is these are science fiction people here. They're having a cow because.
Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote.
ChatGPT on a list to create
with 114 in favor and 8 against, these debate times are adopted, and I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn for a point of order.
Yeah, they hate AI for some reason.
Mixed Chair, the joy of these things running as fast as they can. My point of order is that didn't we handle the debate times originally rather than as a block previously? I know you're trying to move things along, but I believe that we were supposed to do those individually.
Yeah, I mean, yes, at the previous meeting, I had us go through them individually, and we voted on them on a block today. There's no rule that says we had to go through them individually, given what the executive session was about. I had us vote on them individually in case there were specific items that were more contentious than others. Given the majority of the vote we just saw,
Yes, and I'd like to just say for the record that I filed the point of order prior to the results being known, so I
right.
didn't file
No,
this
yeah,
after I
yes,
saw,
I'm
saw
aware.
a massive.
Yeah, no, I understand that. Yeah, but I didn't see the point of order until after the vote happened. So,
Yeah, no, you're right.
Okay, cool. We are going to go ahead and move forward. Okay, so for the debate times for the new constitutional changes, we are going to do these in batches because of how much we can fit on a screen. Warren, if you want to go ahead and get those up. So I'm only going to be setting debate times for the first few, sort of the first half or so of the new constitutional changes today, because those debate times are necessarily going to change depending on where we end today's session. So the debate times for F.1 through F.7, this section of the agenda is brought to you by the word clarifying. I am suggesting for F.1, clarifying active bids, 2 minutes. F.2, clarifying Hugo administrator discretion, 4 minutes. F.3, clarifying best graphic story, 4 minutes. F.4, clarifying best series, 4 minutes. F.5, clarifying the best dramatic presentation categories, excuse me, 4 minutes. F.6, clarifying nominee diversity, 4 minutes, and F.7, clarifying WSFS membership rights, 6 minutes. Is there any objection to my proposed debate times? Okay, seeing none, these debate times are adopted. And then the next batch that I'm going to give us are F.8 through F.12. Sorry, Warren. So while Warren gets that on the screen. So F.8, 14 Days of Christmas, I'm proposing 4 minutes. F.9, Hugo Award Software Source, 4 minutes. F.10, Site Selection Concordance, 4 minutes. F.11, Mandated Hugo Administrator Reports, 4 minutes. And F.12, Speculative Poetry Hugo Award, 8 minutes. Is there any objection to the debate times that I have proposed for these items? I do see an objection. And so we are going to go ahead and vote on these. So if we can go ahead and open a vote on adopting debate time for F.8 to F.12, or sorry, my apologies, don't open that vote, given the point of order I received. Is there any objection to voting on these debate times as a block? Okay, okay, there is an objection. Okay, we're going to have a, okay, we're going to treat this as a motion to suspend the rules to adopt debate times as a block, which will require a 2/3 vote. So if we can go ahead and open a vote on suspending the rules to have debate times voted on in a block instead of requiring separate votes for each one. And so a motion to suspend the rules requires a 2/3 vote, and it's neither debatable nor amendable. Once the tech is able to get that open. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 96 in favor and 16 against, the motion to suspend the rules passes, and we will vote on debate times as a block. And so if we can go ahead and open up a vote on adopting the debate times for F8 through F12. Sorry, we're starting with some slightly more complicated votes that I know takes the tech a little bit more time to get in order. My apologies for that. And so when the tech opens the vote, yep, this is adopting date times for F8 to F12. And we can go ahead and close the vote. With 98 in favor and 7 against, these debate times are adopted. Okay, and like I said, I'm going to hold off on setting debate times for the rest of the items until the next session. And if we get to past F12 today, you all get cookies. And we'll set debate times for those items when we get there. Okay. Let me check the queue. Okay, we have, okay, I'm going to recognize Alexia for a motion.
Hi.
Hello. We can hear you, Alexia. What's your motion?
My motion is to switch the order between E1 and E2's discussion because I think the wording of E1 depends on the outcome of E2.
Okay, thank you. So that's a motion to suspend the rules, to take up items out of order, and take up E.2 and then E.1. Is there a second? Or 3 seconds, as it were. Okay, I do see seconds for this item. And so the motion to take up items out of order requires a 2/3 vote. And so, you know what, actually, instead of that, is there any objection to just going ahead and taking up E.2 first? Okay, there is one. Okay, so we are going to vote on this. Okay, so we're going to need to open a vote on taking up E.2 first. This requires a 2/3 vote. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote with 94 in favor and 6 against. The motion passes, and so we will take up E.2 first. Okay, and so now we are at that point. So the current item of business is E.2, the way we were, which can be found on page 26 of your agenda. Debate time on this item has been set to 6 minutes. Is there anyone wishing to speak in favor of E.2? I don't see anyone. Okay, I am going to recognize Kat Corbetti for a speech against E.2. And then I will be recognizing Alan Bond if I don't have a speech in favor by then. So Kat.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. The entire reason that the original amendment changing the name of supporting membership to WSFS membership was to make everything as clear as possible that when you buy this, you are a member of WSFS for that year. With everything that means, you can vote in the Hugos, you can vote for site selection, you can do all these things. By going back to to attending membership and supporting membership, that doesn't connect to, sorry, my cat has thoughts. It doesn't quite link itself to WSFS. And I think that is crucial. I have also submitted a motion to clarify said WSFS rights. So I believe that we should keep the name of it as WSFS membership and attending supplement. Thank you very much. I yield.
Oh, thanks. Sorry about that. That was a speech in against E.2. I'm going to recognize Brian Nisbet for a speech in favor of E.2, and then Alan Bond for a speech against.
Yep. So, can people hear me?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, cool. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chair. So very briefly, I spoke against this when we changed it the first time. Sitting at bid tables, this is the bit that people don't understand. It is the biggest piece of confusion when we talk about bidding for Worldcon and what a membership is and all of these things. And it is, I can understand the piece around wanting to link it to WSFS, but it is just causing confusion over and over again, whereas people understood the notion of a supporting membership and an attending membership. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of E.2. I'm going to recognize Alan Bond for a speech against, and then I will be recognizing, Linda Deneroff for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. I speak against this motion because I believe that the WSFS membership has incredible import. I believe that the attending supplement language is confusing, but I believe the WSFS membership language is important. And I think that especially as we have these virtual meetings, the Hugos happening beforehand, all of these functions of WSFS are important functions that are a part of WSFS. And I think that communication of what a WSFS membership is an important thing, and I think the attending supplement language is confusing, but I don't think the WSFS membership part is confusing. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a speech against E.2. I'm going to... Yes. Okay. So I have several folks with their hands raised in Zoom who have not been recognized to speak, and we don't have something ahead of us that I haven't asked for a second or an objection. So can we please not just have hands raised for the heck of it? Okay, I'm going to recognize Linda Deneroff for a speech in favor, and then I'm going to recognize Steve Cooper for a speech against. Linda? Okay. Are other folks able to hear Linda? No. Okay. I'm not able to hear Linda either. So go ahead and make sure to check your browser settings that it's using the correct microphone. But while you do that, I'm going to go ahead and recognize David Guan for a speech in favor of E.2. And also be recognizing Steve Cooper for a speech against. David?
Thank you, Mixed Chair. I believe I have a slightly different perspective here than many others. I've been part of the registration teams since Dublin, excluding Chengdu and DC. I headed the AtCon registration for Glasgow. That is my role for Seattle and will be my role for Los Angeles and Montreal should Montreal win. I agree with the suggestions and the original intent behind E2, but it has caused massive amounts of confusion. I see this on a daily basis in responding to member questions with regards to what a WSFS membership is. And I think, I believe that if we were to go back, the majority of those questions would go away. I yield.
Thank you. That was a speech in favor. I'm going to recognize Steve Cooper for a speech against, and then I'm going to try and recognize Linda Deneroff again.
Hello. Basically, I'm going to disagree with my esteemed colleague Brian in that when I was running Treasury for Glasgow and other previous times, there was no confusion over the WSFS membership part of it. Yes, attending supplement is confusing, but then that's just down to American stuff. We call it an attending ticket, basically. But the WSFS membership works really well. We point out that we're a membership organisation and that basically you need to be a member. And it also gets around thinking why day members can't attend the business meeting, things like that, because they don't have a WSFS membership. I yield.
Thank you. Okay, that was a speech against E.2. We're going to try and recognize Linda Deneroff again.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Can you hear me now?
Yep, I can hear you.
Okay. I was one of the original makers of this motion. If you are a member of the convention, you are automatically a WSFS member. That was the way it's been in the past. I don't. When they tried to redefine it, I think they just caused confusion about if I'm a member of WSFS, why can't I attend the convention? Why do I, people don't understand that. If you are a member of the convention, you are a WSFS member. Originally, supporting memberships were created for people who could not attend the convention, who wanted to support the convention. They were still WSFS members. They could still vote. They could still get all the materials. The only thing they couldn't do was attend the business meeting. So I think going back to the original intention of supporting and attending memberships works a heck of a lot better than trying to have to explain time and time and time again that you are a WSFS member, but you have to buy an additional membership to attend the convention. Thank you.
All right, thank you. That was a speech in favor of E.2. Can I get a time check from our timekeeper?
We have 15 seconds remaining for speeches in favor and 40 seconds remaining for speeches against.
Thank you. I'm going to recognize Laura Miller for a speech against, and then I will be recognizing Sharon Spartsky for a speech in favor.
Hello.
Yep.
I like the way that we are. I think that calling it a WSFS membership is important, that we emphasize the fact that the membership is actually the rights to vote in the Hugo's site selection. I think that the wording of it as a membership of WSFS, of the society, is the thing that we need to emphasize, and that the attendance at Worldcon is an extra thing that you add on to your membership. And when you gain this right to be a member, that you retain the right.
That is time.
Okay, thank you. So time against E.2 has elapsed, and I'm going to recognize Sharon Spartsky for a speech in favor. We have 15 seconds of time remaining in favor. Sharon.
Thank you. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I also have long experience working registration and pre-registration for Worldcons, starting with NorrisCon 3 in 1989, including ShyCon 2000. And while there has been some confusion...
That is time.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so debate time has elapsed. I do have a parliamentary inquiry regarding whether or not motions up for ratification are amendable. So to be clear, and I should have stated this at the beginning of this section, and I apologize. So according to our rules, amendments to our constitution, changes to our constitution require passage at 2 consecutive business meetings. So these are items that were adopted last year at the 2024 meeting in Glasgow. And should they be ratified at this meeting, will be added to the Constitution. We are allowed to amend the items up for ratification if the change requires, generally speaking, amending something that is up for ratification resets the ratification clock. In the case that the amendment brings the language closer in line to the existing constitutional language, then it does not reset the clock, and we still are able to, it still gets added to the Constitution at the end of the meeting. Okay, so debate time has expired. And we have 6 folks still wishing to speak in favor, 5 folks still wishing to speak against, and a few folks, I think, let's see, I believe we have 4 folks who are wishing to amend E.2. Let's see. Okay. And I also have several motions wishing to extend debate. Okay. So Cliff Dunn has moved to extend debate by 4 minutes. Is there a second? Okay, I do see seconds for this. So the motion to extend debate requires a 2/3 vote. So if we can go ahead and open a vote on the motion to extend debate by 4 minutes. So this would be 2 minutes of debate for each side. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 52 in favor and 55 against, that is not a 2/3 majority. And the motion to extend debate time does not pass. So even though debate time has elapsed, people can still make motions. They are just not amendable. I do see a motion. Okay, hold on. Let me check. Okay, I do see a request for a speaker pool report, but I gave one when debate time is expired. And I have a point of order from somebody wanting to finish their speech. Unfortunately, when debate time has expired, that ends your opportunity to make speeches, and we did not move to extend debate time. Okay, can we clear the motions to extend debate out of the regular priority pool? Okay. Okay, I have a motion to close debate from Josh Cronengold, and I see several similar motions in the queue. Not quite to get us to 3, though. So is there a second to the motion to end debate? Okay, I see several seconds. So the motion to end debate, which also closes off making subsidiary motions, has been moved and seconded. And so this requires a 2/3 vote. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on ending debate. And so as a reminder, we have 4 speeches in favor, 5 against, and a handful of people wishing to make amendments in the queue. And you can go ahead and vote on closing debate. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 92 in favor and 33 against, that is a 2/3 majority, and so the motion to end debate passes, and so we will move to a vote on E.2. So the item before us is the adoption of E.2. Should this be adopted, it will be added to the Constitution at the end of this Worldcon, and so we can open the vote on the adoption of E.2. Okay. We can go ahead and close the vote. With 85 in favor and 53 against, E.2 is adopted, and so will be added to the Constitution at the end of this convention. We can go ahead and clear all of the folks wishing to speak to E.2 out of the speaking pool. Okay. The next item that we have is E.1, missing in action, which can also be found on page 26 of your agenda. Debate time on this has been set at 2 minutes. So to be clear, we don't need to amend E.1 in any sort of way to reflect E.2. The order of operations will be that E.2 is essentially the last change applied to the Constitution, and it just replaces all instances of WSFS membership with supporting membership. So that'll happen. We don't need to amend E.1 in order to do that. Okay. I am going to recognize Kevin Black for a motion on this. I believe this is a different amendment you're wishing to make, and I don't have anybody else wishing to speak in the
Yeah. Yes, hi, can you hear me?
Yes. You have a lot of background chatter, but I don't think you can do anything.
I'm sorry, I'm at a coffee shop. I'll try to be brief. My motion is to amend E1 by instead striking all material in 1.5.2 of the WSFS Constitution after the rights of WSFS members of the Worldcon include the right to receive all of its generally distributed publications. This would have the effect of removing the sentence, WSFS memberships held by natural persons may not be transferred, except that in the case of death of a natural person holding a WSFS membership, it may be transferred to the estate of the decedent.
Okay, so to make sure I understand, so 1.5.2 reads, the rights of WSFS members of a Worldcon include the right to receive all of its generally distributed publications. WSFS memberships held by natural persons may not be transferred, etc. And that is, so the text on the screen is editing the second sentence of 1.5.2. And so my understanding is that you are wishing to amend 1.5.2 to strike the entirety of the text that's on the screen so that the only text in 1.5.2 would read, the rights of WSFS members of a Worldcon include the right to receive all of its generally distributed publications. Is that correct? Okay. And Warren, I am putting in the staff chat that first sentence if you want to copy and paste that so that folks can see that. So I am not sure if this is germane since it's editing a different part of the section than the rest of the amendment. Martin, do you want to hop into our voice or unmute here and give me your opinion? So I'm just conferring with folks 1 second. Okay, thank you for giving me time for that. Okay, so yeah, my parliamentarian agrees with me. I'm going to rule this out of order. It's not germane because it is like the item up for ratification is editing the second sentence, and striking the entirety of it is a different thing than this ratification was. So I have several points of order and such related to that amendment. You can go ahead and clear those out of the queue as I've ruled that amendment out of order. Okay. Don't believe. Yeah, the rest of these are no longer relevant. Okay. Okay, I'm going to recognize Ron Oakes for a speech in favor of E.1. And anybody else wishing to speak to E.1 should submit a request to speak.
Yeah. E.1 simply is a matter of clarifying an issue that was created when the non-transferability amendment was passed that limited the rights to transfer the voting rights. And it clarified, I believe this was actually made by the Nitpicking and Fly-Specking Committee, who are responsible for fixing these kind of errors in the Constitution. And it simply makes sure that should someone become deceased and hold a WSFS membership, now a supporting or attending membership due to the change from E.2, that those memberships can be transferred. This is simply cleaning up a procedural error that we created, an inadvertent inability for the rights of a dead individual to be transferred. Thank you. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of E.1. I don't have anybody else wishing to speak to E.1. And so we are going, oh, wait, now I do. Olav, how much time do we have remaining in favor?
5 seconds.
Okay, so I don't have any speeches against. And so we are going to go ahead and move to a debate on, or sorry, a vote. We've already done the debate on E.1. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of E.1. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 99 in favor and 13 against, E.1 is adopted and will be added to the Constitution at the end of this Worldcon. Okay, that brings us to E.3, required license agreement, also found on page 26 of your agenda. Debate time on this item has been set at 4 minutes. Anyone wishing to speak to it should submit a request to speak. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and recognize Alan Bond for a speech in favor of E.3.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. This is an important thing that we need to ratify. This marks a licensing agreement with the bids and committees. Since WIP has been invested with the marks, it is now important for the for WIP to have an agreement with the various organizations using the marks. This added to the Constitution would make it so that it is the understanding of WSFS that this is necessary, and it is necessary. Please, please, please pass this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. I don't have anybody else wishing to speak against, so I'm going to recognize Dave Wallace for a speech in favor.
Okay.
we
Yes,
can hear you.
thank you. Excellent. So yes, I just wanted to underline what Ellen said. I've heard from intellectual property lawyers that have concerns about how the whole Chengdu thing went down, and in particular, the fact that what we are protecting, or allegedly what WIP is protecting, is the good name of the service marks that we use. And if we do not have a agreement to specify the quality of how conventions use that mark, there's a good chance that we could lose those protections altogether. So again, I favor this, and hopefully you will vote. I yield.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I currently don't have anybody else wishing to speak to this motion. I do have a motion to end debate, but as we don't have anybody else wishing to speak, we're going to go ahead and move to a vote. So we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of E.3. So we are voting on the adoption of E.3 required license agreement. I understand that there have been some concerns about how long the votes are held open. We can go ahead and close the vote. I can see the live vote totals as they happen, and so I'm closing the vote when it's very disparate. I leave it open longer when it's close. With 123 in favor and 2 against, E.3 is adopted and will get added to the Constitution at the end of this Worldcon. Okay. The next item that we have is E.4 MPC procedures, which is found on page 27 of the agenda. Debate time on this item has been set to 4 minutes. Anybody wishing to speak to E.4 should submit a request to speak. Okay, I'm going to recognize Alan Bond for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. This measure is intended to bring the Marks Protection Committee's policies in line with the policies of WIP, in addition to create a way for members to be removed if they have acted in what the Marks Protection Committee believes to be bad faith. It is a 2/3 vote of the committee. This is important because there are times when members of the Marks Protection Committee have done things that have harmed the marks, and we need to be able to remove them. I would strongly speak in favor of ratifying this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a speech in favor. I'm going to recognize, I don't have anybody wishing to speak against, so I'm going to recognize Nicholas White for a speech in favor.
Thank you very much, Mixed Chairperson. Nicholas White, pronouns he, him. Like Alan, I was very surprised when it turned out that the scope of the Mark Protection Committee for action against its own members turned out to be pretty much limited to censure. I think it's important that the Mark Protection Committee should have the power to remove members in the case of misconduct, and I hope that this meeting will support that proposal. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a speech in favor. And I still don't have anybody wishing to speak against or additional speeches in favor. I am going to recognize Darren Briskman for a motion.
I would point out that the current phrasing of this proposal would prevent persons with hearing
Darren,
challenges.
are you wishing to make a motion? Because it sounds like you're making a speech.
I would ask to change I would propose that we change the phrase hear each other to communicate with each other, so that persons with hearing challenges could participate in the Marks Protection Committee.
Okay. can you restate? You're wishing to strike which text and insert?
1.7.y, third line,
Mhm.
currently states members participating may simultaneously hear each other. Strike the word hear and replace with communicate with.
Okay, so the motion is to strike here and insert communicate in
With.
1.7.y.
Communicate with one another.
Or sorry, communicate with.
Thank you.
Okay. Is there a second? Okay, I see several seconds, and so it is seconded. I understand that there's some requests regarding the color of the markup. Unfortunately, like, it can't be red, it can't be blue, because those options are already taken. When Warren has a chance, he's going to try and edit his green to be a little more readable, but this is what we have for the moment. So to be clear, this is an amendment. The Briskman amendment is to strike here and insert communicate with in 1.7.y. And so we can go ahead and open up the second order speaking pool. Olaf, how much time do we have remaining on E.4?
We have 2.5 minutes.
Okay, and that time will be split evenly for the amendment. Okay, hold on. I have a couple points of order, I think, maybe. Okay, so I have a couple parliamentary inquiries about whether this is a greater or a lesser change. So I think I'm not ruling yet because it hasn't happened yet. I am inclined to say my opinion is that it is a lesser change. But we will rule on that officially when it is, or if it is adopted. Okay. I'm going to recognize Kate Secor. If your point of order is relevant to the amendment, can you please raise your hand? And if it is better taken up after the amendment, can you please not raise your hand? Okay, I don't see Kate's hand being raised, so I will wait to take up that point of order. There's a request that I rule now on whether it's a greater or a lesser change. No, I do not issue rulings on hypotheticals. Also, if I rule, it can get appealed, and we are not going to be taking time with an appeal of the ruling of the chair on an amendment that may or may not get adopted. I will not be ruling until we know whether or not the amendment is adopted. Okay. Darren, do you wish to speak in favor of your amendment? If so, can you please raise your hand? Okay. I'm going to recognize Darren to speak to their amendment. And so to be clear, the item in front of us is the Briskman amendment to E.4 to strike here and insert communicate with. Darren?
Thank you. This is a simple clarification of terms to make sure that we do not prevent persons with hearing challenges from serving on the Marks Protection Committee. Thank you, Chair.
Right, thank you. This is a speech in favor of the amendment. I don't have anybody wishing to speak against the amendment in the queue yet. I'm going to recognize Chris Rose for a speech in favor of the amendment.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Rose, he, him. I would like to echo Darren's statements that this is a simple minor change for explicitly supporting accessibility as part of the Mark Protection Committee and WIP. And I see no reason for us not as a group to adopt this amendment before approving the constitutional amendment. I yield.
Thank you. That was a speech in favor of the amendment. Okay, I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn for a speech against the amendment. And then if we still have time remaining, I'll recognize Alan Tipper for a speech in favor.
Mixed Chair, I am fully in favor of the intent of this amendment. My only concern is that this could inadvertently end up rolling us back by a year, and since we've been unable to get a formal ruling of the chair that this is not a greater change and resolve that, I don't want to risk losing another year on this over a hang-up.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against the amendment. I will just restate for anybody who missed it that as a parliamentary inquiry, my opinion is that it is a lesser change, but I have not officially ruled. Okay, I don't see anybody else wishing to speak on the amendment. And so we will go ahead and move. Okay, I'm sorry, I do have a speech against the amendment. I'm going to recognize Jerry Sullivan for a speech against. Jerry, if you can go ahead and raise your hand in the Zoom so that we can recognize you.
Thank you, Mixed Chairperson. My concern, I'm fully in favor of accessibility things. My concern is that this amendment, or my question is, this amendment would seem to open up and expand the methods of communication that the Mark Protection Committee was limited by before. So I'm concerned that this does more than just make the committee accessible. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to recognize Alan Tipper for a speech in favor of the amendment. And my apologies, I just got confused on where I was in my list of people. I didn't mean to almost skip over you.
All right, thank you, Mixed Chair. This is Alan Tipper, they, them. Simply put, I believe that this amendment does work perfectly as a minor change, and to address what Jerry was just us talking about in their speech against, hence, because of the other wording in this amendment, I believe that that isn't a problem with this specific change. So I am in favor of this. That's it.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of the amendment. And I don't have anybody else still wishing to speak. So we will go ahead and move to a vote. So to be clear, the item ahead of us is the Briskman Amendment to amend E.4 to strike in 1.7.y here and insert communicate with. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of the Briskman Amendment to E.4. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote with 111 in favor and 112 against. The motion is adopted, and
Mixed Chair, that is 12 against, not 112.
Yeah, no, you're right. Yep, 111 in favor and 12 against. Thank you. The motion is adopted, and so the text of 1.7.5 now strikes here and inserts communicate with so that it reads, all members participating may simultaneously communicate with each other. Olaf, how much time do we have remaining on E.4 after the amendment?
We have 35 seconds remaining.
Okay, thank you. Okay, and so we have an amended E.4, and I am going to rule that this is a lesser change and so does not reset the ratification clock. And I'm going to recognize Kate Secor for a point of order.
Hello. Mixed Chair, would you please rule on whether this is affected by Chair's ruling, I think it's 2011-01, the one that says that business meetings aren't allowed to control the MPC?
Yeah. So no, it's not. So to be clear, the point of order is that there have been rulings made in the past that basically we can't tell the MPC what to do. To be clear, the business meeting can't. I'm simplifying things, but the rulings about what the business meeting can and can't tell the MPC to do is about things like instructing the committee to do things as part of like a resolution, because the MPC is in the Constitution. This changes the Constitution. We are allowed to tell the MPC to do things via the Constitution. That is, in fact, like the mechanism for that, generally speaking. So yeah, this is fine. Okay. So we are back to E.4 as amended. I do not have anybody wishing to speak on E.4. I do have a couple motions to end debate. But as we don't have anybody wishing to speak, we will go ahead and move to a vote. So we can go ahead and open the vote on adopting E.4 as amended. And we can go ahead and close the vote. With 120 in favor and 3 against, E.4 is passed as amended and will get added to the Constitution at the end of this Worldcon. Okay, the next item that we have is E.5, Hugo Administration and Site Selection Monitoring on page 27 of your agenda. Debate time on this item has been set to 6 minutes. Anybody wishing to speak to this item should go ahead and submit a request to speak. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and recognize Nicholas White for a motion.
Thank you, Mixed Chairperson Nicholas White, he, him. I was on the committee that proposed this, but things have changed a bit. We now have a Hugo process advisory committee, which is doing very good work. And I feel that a large chunk of this resolution, of this amendment, is actually preempting their decisions. So I propose that we delete everything after the first paragraph of this amendment. I believe it's absolutely right that the Constitution should specify that there should be a Hugo Administration subcommittee. That has been the universal practice of recent Worldcons. However, I think that the more detailed changes that are proposed to Hugo Administration and Site Selection Monitoring, in other words, the proposed new section 5.x, I think that we're not yet ready to go that far, and I would like that to be further considered. And I think, although people suggested to me that I might divide the motion, in fact, this whole chunk depends on the first section, so I'm proposing instead to delete this chunk, but I still hope that people will vote in favour of the amendments to 313. Thank you, Mixed Chairperson.
Okay, thank you. So this is a motion to amend E.5 by striking the entirety of the new section 5.x, so only the changes to 3.1.3 would remain. I do see several seconds. And so this has been moved and seconded. Okay. So the item before us is the White amendment to E.5 to strike the entirety of the new 5.x. I believe this is actually something where we have 5 minutes of debate time that we can. So our rules give 5 minutes of debate time automatically to amendments. We've just often found ourselves in the case where we don't have 5 minutes. but we do. And so debate time on this is set at 5 minutes. And so we can go ahead and open up the second order queue. I know I'm going to be asked if this is a greater or a lesser change. Okay, yeah. So before I rule on whether it's a greater or lesser change, I need to address the fact that the last sentence of 3.1.3 refers to the struck 5.x. Nicholas, do you wish for your motion to also include striking the words including the members elected by the business meeting?
Mr. Chairperson, thank you. Yes, I do.
Okay. Is there any objection to incorporating that into the amendment? Seeing none, we're going to go ahead and incorporate that text into the amendment. So to be clear, the amendment is to strike the entirety of 5.x and the including the members elected by the business meeting to 3.1.3. Okay, so I believe that takes care of that parliamentary inquiry, and this would be, once again, this is my opinion. It's not a ruling, but my opinion is that I will probably be ruling this to be a lesser change. Okay, Nicholas, do you wish to speak to you already gave a little bit, but if you wish to give more of a speech in favor, you can do so.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I don't want to take up too much of this meeting's time. I think my point is quite clear. I think it's really important that we recognise the reality of what's happening by institutionalising the Hugo subcommittee as a mandatory point. I don't think that we're at the stage where we can really mess around with Hugo administration site selection monitoring as is proposed here, even though I was on the committee that proposed it last year. So I hope we can stand back, think again, and I hope that the Hugo process committee is listening to this debate and will take this on board. Thank you.
Thank you. So that was a speech in favor of the amendment. I'm going to recognize Alexia Habel for a speech against the amendment. And then I'm going to recognize Kate Secor for a speech in favor of the amendment.
Hi, this is Alexia Habel. I believe that we should leave things the way they are because there is nothing in place today, and the Hugo committee, well, whenever they get around to fixing it, they can always change it back again if that is what they want to do, or make modifications in the future if that is what they want to do, and that I think we need some guidelines to work with until that is finished. Thank you. I'm done.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against the amendment. I'm going to go ahead and recognize Kate Secor for a speech in favor of the amendment, and then Cliff Dunn for a speech against.
Mr. Chair, as a member of the Hugo Process Subcommittee, I'd like to thank Mr. White for his consideration of our remit. I don't think that we should be introducing a complicated system now that limits the Hugo Process Committee's ability to do things and will also require unwinding if that committee wants to do something else. It would take 2 years to repeal this, and I think we should give the committee that we chose to do this a chance to do their work. I yield, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. That was a speech in favor. And I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn for a speech against the amendment. And then I'm going to recognize Ron Oakes for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. While I definitely appreciate the sentiment of Mr. White, the simple fact is this is going to set us back 2 years, at least, possibly more, depending on how quickly the committee comes to conclusions and we adopt them. I concur with the previous speaker against, that we should adopt this now and amend it later if necessary, but I think it's more important to have something in place sooner rather than later. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against the amendment. Olav, how are we doing on time?
We have 1 minute and 20 seconds remaining in favor of the amendment, and 1 minute and 30 seconds remaining against the amendment.
Thank you. I'm going to recognize Ron Oakes for a speech in favor.
Ron Oakes, he, him. I'm largely going to reiterate what Nicholas and Kate have already said. This is a case, I think what we have here largely is a case of legislating in haste, and we also at the same meeting appointed a committee to really look at this process. Yes, they did not get back to us this year because this is a complicated process. We also have the committee that was established in executive session that is going to be looking into details of more in depth into details what happened in 2024, which may also end up informing some of what goes on. We need to make sure that we are setting guidelines and fixing the Hugo process correctly. Let's not go back and go legislating in haste and creating more complicated situations that become sacrosanct and end up creating edge cases that we can't deal with or cause problems we didn't expect in the future. Thank you. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of the White Amendment. Okay, I have several motions to end debate on all items before us in the queue. So to be clear, this would end debate not just on the amendment, but also on the underlying motion. And I do see several seconds to the motion to end debate. So it's been moved and seconded to end debate. We have nobody else wishing to speak in favor or against the amendment. I do see a motion to refer, I think. And we do still have a couple folks wishing to speak against E.4, the underlying E.4. So the motion to end debate requires a 2/3 vote. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on ending debate on E.4 and the amendment. We can go ahead and close the vote with 102 in favor and 19 against. That is a 2/3 majority. And so we will move immediately to a vote. So we are going to be voting on the adoption of the White Amendment to E.5. So to be clear, this motion strikes the entirety of the new section 5.x in the amendment and also strikes the text including the members elected by the business meeting from 3.1.3. So all those so we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of the White Amendment to E.5. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote with 105 in favor and 25 against. The motion is amended. And so we are back to the underlying E.5 as amended. So this is E.5 without any 5.x and without the text including the members elected by the business meeting in 3.1.3. So we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of E.5. Okay. We can go ahead and close the vote with 109 in favor and 13 against. E.5 is adopted. And I'm going to rule that this is a lesser change, and so this does not reset the ratification clock. And so this will be added to the Constitution at the end of the current Worldcon. Okay, that brings us, and we can go ahead and clear everything related to E.5 out of the speaking pool. Okay, that brings us to E.6, editorial alignment, which can be found on page 28 of your agenda. Debate time on this item has been set at 2 minutes. I'm going to recognize Emily Bell for a speech in favor of E.6.
Hello, I'm Emily Bell, she, her, EM, and there's two primary reasons for this proposed change. One is that under the current Constitution, no editor of novels is eligible unless they have edited 4 novels in a single year, and that this is disproportionately an issue for indie, disabled, and marginalized editors. The second reason is this actually brings it into alignment with how short form already is for magazines and anthologies that require one of those books of a whole body of work to be that year, not all 4 in any year of eligibility. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of E.6. I don't have anybody else wishing to speak to E.6. Oh, now I do. Okay, I'm going to recognize Kate Secor for a speech against E.6.
Mixed Chair, while I'm sympathetic to the accessibility argument, this is not a Lifetime Achievement Award. This is an award for work that you did in this year. I think extending this out is detrimental to the intent of the award, and that for a similar effect, proposers should consider reducing the number of 4 to a smaller number, rather than making this more of a lifetime award. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against E.6. I don't have any, well, maybe I do. I don't have anybody else wishing to speak to E.6. Okay, I do have, okay, so I have a couple different motions to end debate on E.6. I do have one person still wishing to speak in favor and somebody wishing to make an amendment in the queue. Is there a second to ending debate on E.6? Okay, I do see several seconds. So this is, I'm not sure if we have a minute of time remaining, but I'm going to take this as a motion. If we don't, I'm going to say this is a motion to suspend the rules and end debate, since our rules technically say that you have to, that you can't do that when the clock's under a minute. So the motion to end debate requires a 2/3 vote and is neither debatable nor amendable. So we will go ahead and open up the vote on ending debate on E.6. Going to go ahead and give you all about 15 more seconds. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 85 in favor and 29 against, that is a 2/3 majority. And so debate on E.6 has ended. And we are going to go ahead and move to a vote. So we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of E.6 editorial alignment. I'm going to go ahead and keep the vote open for another 15 seconds or so. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 74 in favor and 53 against, E.6 is adopted and will be added to the Constitution at the end of this Worldcon. Okay. I'm just going to state for the record, so I understand that there was somebody who was wanting to appeal my ruling on the amendment to E.5 being a lesser amendment, but has now retracted their request. So that's why I'm not recognizing them. We are moving through things a little bit more quickly than we normally do because of what we have in front of us. If something like that happens where you are wishing to appeal my ruling, and I don't see it immediately, I'll recognize you when we get to a break at that point, rather than having to, especially for something like that where it's not going to break things if we take up whether or not it's a lesser or greater change in 5 minutes instead of 5 seconds. My goal as the presiding officer is to guide us through accomplishing our business. That both means in the sense of making sure that we get it done, but also in the sense of trying to be fair, but also make sure that folks can follow what's happening. And so that's what I'm attempting to do. I see a couple questions regarding about when we're going to take a break. So as the agenda says, we are going to be taking a break around 10:45 Pacific time. Okay. The next item that we have is E.7, no more retros. Debate time on this item has been set at 8 minutes. This is on page 29 of your agenda. And so if anybody is wishing to speak to E.7, no more retros, they can submit their request to speak. Oh shoot. Can one of my staff get the results from the consultative vote and put it in our chat, because I forgot to do that. This was an item, this was one of the 2 items for ratification that Seattle performed a consultative vote on. And so I guess first I'm going to ask, is there any objection from the meeting to me reading the results of the consultative vote to the body? Okay, I do see an objection, and so I will not be doing so. If somebody that doesn't constrain y'all's debate in any sort of way, but as the presiding officer, if somebody believes that it would bias the body for me to announce the results of the non-binding consultative vote, I will not do so. Okay, I'm going to recognize Kent Bloom for a speech in favor of E.7, and then I'm going to recognize Dave Wallace for a speech in favor, unless we have somebody who wishes to speak against pop up before then. Kent?
Mixed Chair, I don't think we have covered ourselves in glory with the existing retro Hugo processes. Many of the recent Worldcons which could have had retro Hugos declined. Many of the people who have received them in the past have been, to me at least, been embarrassing because they don't actually do anything useful and because they aren't the people that that I think should have received the awards. Therefore, I think we should adopt this and stop doing retros. Thank you. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of E.7. I'm going to recognize Josh Cronengold for a speech against E.7, and then I'm recognizing Dave Wallace for a speech in favor. Josh, you were very, like, I can kind of tell that sound is happening, but not really. No, I think your sound is, like, I can barely hear you, and my very good speaker is turned all the way up. I think your system is probably using a different microphone. Do you want to try once more? No, I can't hear you. So I'm going to go ahead and move to
Is it better if I unmute my microphone? Can you hear me now?
Okay, I can hear you now. So we will go ahead and have Josh Cronengold be recognized for a speech against E.7. Sorry about that.
I'm not hearing anything?
I can hear you. Okay. It appears in fixing...
You want to mute me, because I cannot hear a single word back. So if people can hear me, I can't tell.
Okay. Somebody can let Joshua know that it appears that in making us able to hear him, he made it so that he can hear us. Okay. Joshua, if you are able, it looks like Joshua can see that in the chat. So if you speak, you can.
Okay, is this better?
Yes. Yes.
Okay, sorry. So the consultative vote on this issue was Joshua Cronengold, he, him. Thank you, Mixed Chair. The consultative vote on this issue was 164 yes, 167 no. I will note that that is more than twice as many people as are in the room right now. And so even though the margin was only 3 votes, we should not, as a body, be overriding the will of Worldcon as represented by a much larger body. And therefore, we must vote this down. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against E.7. So I'm going to recognize Dave Wallace for a speech in favor. And then I will be recognizing Ron Maas for a speech against.
Okay. Yes. Thank you, Mr. Chair. Dave Wallace, he, him. And last year, I was in favor of a different amendment that was aimed at reforming the retrospective Hugos, and in fact proposed my own amendment to that to reform them even further. That amendment was voted down last year, and basically I am convinced that the way the retro Hugos are working right now is not working effectively and is essentially vestigial if we're not willing to do major reform to try and improve them and make them something that's actually viable for people to participate in, given the increasing amount of time that the regular Hugos take, which is what people are focusing on. Then I think we should just move on. The consultative vote being close is not necessarily dispositive. It says, you know, half the people are in favor, half the people are against, with some minor margin of error that determines whether the consultative vote passes or fails. And I think we should use our judgment here. And again, if we're just preserving what we've been doing, I think that doesn't work. So if we're not willing to entertain significant reforms, we should get rid of them and move on and do something different next time. I do believe we should recognize past work in different ways, but we need to be able to do so with something that people can get behind. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of E.7. I'm going to recognize Ron Moss for a speech against, and then I'll be recognizing Perry Ann Lurie for a speech in favor.
Yes, mixed chairperson, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yes, it has been the Ron Moss, he, him. It has been mentioned that people one of the reasons put forth for getting rid of these is that they don't like the people who win the Retro Hugos, and I would question whether or not these people who have that objection have actually voted in the Retro Hugos, or if they voted for somebody who didn't win, in which case I think in either case they really don't have a right to complain about who more people voted for. I know I've always enjoyed the Retro Hugos. They get me to read old SF, which I otherwise would not have, and did not even when we had tracks like at ShyCon to try to take the place of them. And I would just really like to see them restored. And I yield back.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against E.7. I'm going to recognize Perry Ann Lurie for a speech in favor of E.7. And then I am going to recognize Kevin Black for a speech against.
Mixed chairperson, Perry Ann Lurie, she, her. I think that the consultative vote had some issues this year in that the timing was off and short, and a lot of people didn't even know about it. So we shouldn't place too much emphasis on the results of that. I think the Retro Hugos were maybe a good idea to try out, but I think they have been an abysmal failure, and we should stop doing them. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of E.7. I'm going to recognize Kevin Black, sorry, for a speech against. And then I'm going to recognize Alan Fleming for a speech in favor.
I agree with the previous speakers that it's important to recognize the voice of the membership. The Retro Hugos also, I enjoy them. I find them valuable. They increase discussion and readership of older works of SF, discussion of them on podcasts. I have multiple friends who engage on projects to read the Hugos, and they read the retros. This discussion is valuable even if, or maybe especially if, in retrospect, we find those works embarrassing, because the discussion benefits the community. I think there have been issues with the way the retros have been administered in the past. Those can be fixed by innovation of future Worldcons, but only if we retain the option of the future Worldcons to use this option, which I hope they do. Thank you. Please vote against.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against E.7. And I'm going to recognize Alan Fleming for a speech in favor, and then Jerry Sullivan for a speech against.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Can you hear me?
Yep.
Thank you. I appreciate the point of Mr. Krungill that we need to take account of the consultative vote in favour. However, obviously it's not binding on us, and we are here to express our own opinions. There has been disquiet about the Retro Hugos, the level of participation, the level of whether people are voting for works that they have recently reread or works that they remember happily from a previous time. I do not believe that they reflect SFF as it currently is, and I am fully in favour of this motion of to retire them. I yield.
Thank you. Olaf, can I get a check on how we're doing on time? Olaf, did you hear me ask for a time check?
I'm sorry, I gave a time check and my mic was muted. We have 30 seconds remaining in favor and 1:50 against.
Okay, thank you. I'm going to recognize Jerry Sullivan for a speech against, and then I'm going to recognize Terry Neal for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mixed Chairperson. Jerry Sullivan, she, her. In general, I am in favor of leaving decisions in the hands of individual Worldcons as much as possible. As we've seen in recent years, most current recent Worldcons that have had the opportunity to do retros have chosen not to. They can continue to choose not to. I would like to not take away the choice from them to be able to do them. They're of mixed value. I agree with the other people. There are problems with them. There are good things about them. But I'm in favor of leaving it in the hands of the individual Worldcon, so I would vote against this. I yield.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to recognize Terry Neal for a speech in favor of E.7, and then Olav Rockne for a speech against.
Terry Neal, she, her. Mr. Chairman, I think that the retros have run their course, and the lack of participation in the past years that have had them is glaring. It's always up to cons to do a retrospective. There have been some really, really nice ones done in the past. And if we get rid of this, there's no reason that cons can't continue to do retrospectives. I yield.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor.
And we are out of time for speeches in favor.
You're out of time for speeches in favor. I'm going to recognize Olav for a speech against. I will time this speech.
Thank you, Mixed Chairperson. The Retro Hugos, when they were originally proposed, I believe that the original proposer described them as a funny once. And it was because the Worldcon that year was happening in the same city as it had taken place in 50 years previously, exactly. But I think they've grown over time. Some have been more problematic than others. But what I've noticed is that there is a different set of biases at play in Retro Hugos that took place 50 years after the original awards had been presented, as happened 75 years. And of course, we would soon be looking at the 100-year mark, because of course, retros can be given either 50, 75, or 100 years after the date that the original Hugos would have been presented. I'm sort of interested to see how the 100-year later Retro Hugos might play out. And I think it's okay for them to lie fallow for a number of years before being taken up again by some future Worldcon. So I'm in favor of not necessarily them running anytime soon, but leaving them in the Constitution.
Okay. So debate time, both in favor and against, has elapsed. We still have 4 folks wishing to speak in favor and 2 folks wishing to speak against. We don't have anybody wishing to make amendments or anything like that. And so I'm going to go ahead and move us to a vote. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of E.7. I'll leave the vote open for another 10 to 15 seconds. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. Okay, with 81 in favor and 49 against, E.7 is adopted and will be added to the Constitution at the end of this meeting. Upon the adoption of the ratification of E.7, the proposal F.21 Save the Retros no longer presents a rational proposition because it is modifying language that has disappeared from the Constitution due to the ratification of E.7. And as such, I am ruling that F.21 Save the Retros is no longer in order and is stricken from the agenda. Okay. We are at 10:50 a.m. We have one more ratification to take up today. So I'm just going to ask really quickly, is there an objection to going ahead and taking up E.8 before we move to a break, or do folks want to go ahead and move to a break now? So objecting if you don't want to wait. Okay, so I do see a few objections, and okay, so we will go ahead and preference the time that we gave in the agenda. So we are going to go ahead and take our break. And so we are in recess until, why can't I do math? 7, 8, until 11:08 a.m. Pacific time, which is 15 minutes from now. And if I did time zones wrong, it's 15 minutes from now, regardless of what it is. So we are going to go ahead and be in recess for 15 minutes. And when we get back, we'll be taking up E.8.
Okay, so I'm watching this meeting here, and so there's this button right here that says stream that I've just highlighted. Next to the gear, there's this big button. Yeah, so it'll be like this thing here. And I'm not going to press it, but what'll happen is then it'll pop up a dialog say end stream, yes, no, and you'll have yes. But before you press that button, you have to listen to what these people are saying in this meeting and make sure the meeting's actually over. And if the meeting's over, or if I send you a message, then you have to press this button, okay? Can you do that?
So I have to wait until...
So what you have to do is you have to come down here around 5 minutes to 12 and listen, because what happens, so what'll probably happen is the meeting will go late and I'll be back in time. because these guys always go over time, and we can't end it until you'll see that the people will start to leave the meeting, and the number of people there, and you'll see there'll be nobody talking. So if you hear people talking on this, don't do that. If you get a message from me on your phone or a call from me, I may say end it even though that it's going on right now. But I need you to be able to be here to press this button in case I'm not. Okay? So you'll have to make sure your phone is charged so I can talk to you, and you'll have to be able to watch the time sometime starting around 11:45. You have to start paying attention and get ready to do that right around halfway after I leave. I'll tell you when I leave, okay?
Okay.
Okay? You think you can do this?
Maybe.
Well, come back and explain to me so to make sure that I know you understand.
So I have to listen to these people talking, and when the stream's almost over,
or not almost, when it is over, when they've stopped talking.
Yeah. And then I press the stream.
Move the mouse.
Press the stream button.
Yes.
And then end the stream.
Yep. Okay. That's basically it. Okay. I'm gonna give my
This is your 3-minute warning that we will be returning from recess in 3 minutes. Okay, I have that it is 8 past, and so we are going to go ahead and get back to it. Okay, the next item in front of us is E.8 belated finalists, found on page 29 of your agenda. Debate time on this has been set to 6 minutes. Is anybody wishing to speak to E.8? Should submit a request to do so. Please don't raise your hand in the Zoom until you've been recognized to speak. Okay, I don't have any speeches in favor that have been submitted yet, so I'm going to go ahead and recognize Nicholas White for a speech against.
Thank you, Mixed Chairperson Nicholas White, he, him. We have to be clear, we got this wrong last year. there's a general point here that the business meeting cannot rewrite history by saying that people were finalists who weren't. Big mistakes, awful mistakes were made in 2023, and a lot of people who should have been finalists were not recognised as finalists. But the other problem is that when we do this, we get it wrong. If this amendment is passed, we will automatically recognise the six people, the six potential finalists who were identified last year. In fact, we now know that one of those six was in fact correctly excluded from the 2023 Hugo Awards. And we also know that there were between 22 and 27 other nominees who were incorrectly excluded from the 2023 Hugos. So we will be recognizing the wrong people. And the simple answer is simply not to have this possibility in the system at all, and accept that when we make mistakes, mistakes are made. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you. That was a speech against E.8. Still don't see anybody wishing to speak in favor, so I'm going to recognize Carl Nail for a speech against. Carl, if you can raise your hand in the Zoom, and then we can ask you to unmute. Okay.
I think I finally got it right. Can you hear me?
Yep, I can hear you.
Thank you, Madam sorry, I goofed already. Mixed Chair, he/him, Carl Nail. Yes, in addition to what Nicholas White said, the voting complications on this are legion. It's six nominees in each category. Once you're limited to that, and I'm assuming that this does not amend to allow for something larger than six, then by recognizing any of these 20 some odd other eligible people, you've immediately locked down spots that make it impossible for people who would have been eligible in the current year to be nominated. Who are you? We're going to be unfair to somebody. I think in that vein, Nicholas White is correct. As we just can't undo history. We can't fix everything for everybody. So let's just drop it and understand that we messed up and leave it at that. I yield.
Thank you. That was a speech against E.8. I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn for a speech in favor, and then David Guan for a speech against. Cliff.
Mixed Chair, I would like to note that the speaker prior to me got it exactly wrong. This does, in fact, allow us to add additional names. However, I would point out to both speakers' points, what happened in 2023 was egregious and unprecedented, and at some point we need some sort of check on a Hugo administrator who goes rogue, who arbitrarily throws things off the ballot. The Hugo administrator in 2023 had previously asserted the right to throw works off the ballot or throw ballots out for any reason they saw fit. And we need some sort of check on that sort of absolute power, because we have seen that it can and indeed was used in a dubious manner in 2023. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to remind folks that we need to be careful about making assertions and claims about things that happened that did not take place at the business meeting, and so that we don't have direct knowledge of. That was right on the line, probably a little bit over it. Okay, that was a speech in favor of E.8. I'm going to recognize David Guan for a speech against.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. While I certainly support the sentiments behind this amendment, it does not actually do anything constructive. It does widen the pool ever so slightly, and even if it does allow for additional voters.
We are at time.
Okay, thank you. So time to speak against E.8 has elapsed. How much time do we have remaining for speeches in favor?
2 minutes and 10 seconds.
Okay, thank you. I do not have anybody else wishing to speak in favor currently in the pool. So I'm going to give y'all just a little bit to see if anybody else is wishing to speak in favor. We currently have 2 speeches against still in the pool, and nobody wishing to make any motions regarding this. Well, sorry, there is one to end debate. Okay, I still don't see anybody wishing to speak in favor, so we are going to go ahead and move to a vote. So we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of E.8 belated finalists on page 29 of the agenda. Once the LumiTech has that ready, we'll open the vote on the adoption of E.8. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote with 18 in favor and 101 against. E.8 fails and is not adopted. Okay, the only remaining item up for ratification is E.9, but as stated previously, we are going to take that up at the next meeting, and so that moves us on to the Fs. Before we get there, however, we have somebody wishing to make a motion to suspend the rules and introduce a late item of business. So I'm going to recognize Alan Tipper to make that motion. Alan, if you can go ahead and raise your...
There we go. Sorry, I didn't raise my hand, but you found me anyway. Thank you. So, in short, or as was discussed at earlier versions of this meeting, including one I couldn't attend, and the way we are conducting this meeting technically violates our rules. And so I would like to make a motion to introduce language to fix that fact. And that motion is, you know,
okay.
I've already shared it with everybody. There it is. Yep, okay. Thank you.
So this is a motion to suspend the rules to take up a late item of business. The text of the motion is on the change. So I believe this is, I believe the 5s are amendments to the Constitution, and the 1.1 referenced is, I believe, to the standing rules. Yes, 1.1 is to the standing rules. Okay, so because this is a late item of business, it requires a suspension to the rules to take it up. And if we do choose to take it up, it will be added to the end of the agenda. So is there a second to the motion to suspend the rules to take up this item? Okay, I do see seconds. Thank you.
Hello.
Okay. So the motion to suspend the rules is neither debatable nor amendable and requires a 2/3 vote. And so to be clear, what we are voting on is whether or not we wish to take up this new item of business, F.23, which would amend both the standing rules and the Constitution. Voting in favor of suspending the rules does not mean you are voting in favor or against adopting this change. It's just whether or not you want it to be added to our agenda. So we can go ahead and open the vote on the suspension of the rules to add F.23 to the agenda. I'm going to leave the vote open for about 10 to 15 more seconds. Okay, thank you. We can go ahead and close the vote. With 80 in favor and 45%, or sorry, 45, with 80 in favor and 45 against, that is not a 2/3 majority. And so the motion to suspend the rules does not pass. And F.23 is not added to the agenda. Okay. So we are going to move to F.1. Hold on, sorry, I have a couple high priority items that have been submitted. So I have a parliamentary inquiry regarding my ruling. So to be clear, yes, at the first business meeting, I ruled that this meeting was allowed and in line with our rules. And that was appealed and the meeting sustained my ruling. People are still allowed to disagree and think that voting doesn't necessarily change people's minds. And so people are still allowed to express the opinion that they believe that the meeting is against the rules. And make motions to change the rules if they wish to do so. So nothing in that negated or contradicted my ruling. Cliff Dunn, do you still have your parliamentary inquiry? If so, can you raise your hand in the Zoom? Okay. What is your inquiry?
Okay, this is actually at this point a point of personal privilege. Could we please get a copy of that motion emailed out just so that I can include that in discussion elsewhere, because I only saw it on the screen.
Okay, yeah. Can business meeting staff will get that text. I mean, it's almost certain it's not going to be emailed, but we'll get it into the. We'll either share a link to the Google Doc of it or get the text into one of the channels of the Discord when we have a moment to do so. Okay. Okay, so we are going to move to F.1, clarifying active bids. This is on page 31 of your agenda. And debate time on this item has been set at 2 minutes. Is there if anyone from the nitpicking and fly specking committee would wish to speak in favor, if you can please raise your hand in the Zoom so I can recognize you. And also anybody else wishing to speak to F.1 who's wishing to speak, or yeah, anybody else wishing to speak to F.1 can submit a request to do so. Okay. I do not have anybody wishing to speak on F.1 at all that I can see. So we will go ahead and move to a vote. So we are voting on the adoption of F.1, clarifying active bids. Page 31 of the agenda. You can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of F.1. We can go ahead and close the vote with 110 in favor and 7 against. F.1 passes and will be forwarded to 2026 business meeting for ratification. Okay, so that brings us to F.2, clarifying Hugo administrator's discretion, also on page 31 of the agenda. Debate time for this has been set to 4 minutes. If anybody from the nitpicking and fly specking committee would like to speak to it, you can please raise your hand in the Zoom and I'll recognize you, and anybody else wishing to speak to it can submit a request to do so. Not seeing anybody from the Nitpicking and Fly Specking Committee, I'm going to recognize Jed Hartman for a speech in favor.
Hi, Jed Hartman, he, him. Here's a piece of evidence for why it is worth making this change. There was a Locus article from March 2024 that said that Dave McCarty, quote, claims the changes he made were justified by WSFS Rule 3.8.2, unquote. Most of the people who I've talked to do seem to recognize what this section was supposed to indicate, but I have seen various people make this claim that it is that 3.8.2 allows the administrator to do anything they want. So I think it's worth making the clarification. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor of F.4. Okay, I am going to recognize Kevin Hewitt for a motion.
Oh, yes, Kevin Hewitt. We just ratified an amendment that requires all Hugo eligibility nominees, etc., to a subcommittee. I think we therefore need to amend this proposed amendment to replace the Worldcon committee with the Hugo subcommittee. Over.
Okay. Yep. One moment. Let me check something. So to be clear, this amendment is to strike the Worldcon committee and replace it with a Hugo administration subcommittee. Yeah. Okay. I want to rule that this is editorial, but I don't think it is. So we do actually need to take this up. Okay. So the motion is to amend F.2 by striking Worldcon committee and inserting Hugo administration subcommittee so that the text would read, the Hugo administration subcommittee shall, within the range of options, etc. Is there a second for this amendment? Okay, I do see several seconds. Thank you. Can go ahead and have folks lower hands. Okay, so the
I'm here, ready to go.
The amendment has been moved and seconded and is before us. I'm going to ask the body, is there any objection to immediately adopting this amendment, the amended text? Okay, there is. Okay, so how much time do we have remaining on F.2, Olav?
We should go.
We have 3 minutes and 10 seconds.
Okay, so that time will be split evenly on each side for the amendment. And we can go ahead and open up the second order speaking pool. I do have a parliamentary inquiry of wanted directions to a committee also include all subcommittees. So if these were committees of the business meeting, maybe. I'm honestly not sure. I think probably, but I would need to dig into it to rule on that. But these aren't committees in the parliamentary sense. These committees are like a different thing. And so I don't think, like, I don't think it has quite the same effect. I do have another parliamentary inquiry regarding this, about basically just making. So if this were like, like I said, I would like to say that this is just an editorial change and that it's clear what the body's intent is to do. But I do think that there is a substantive difference between saying the Worldcon committee and the Hugo administration subcommittee in this. And so I am not comfortable saying that that's just a change we can make. And we did have, I don't remember how many, but at least one member of the body object to just adopting the amendment rather immediately. And so it's clear that there are at least some folks here who don't believe that it's just a quick one-to-one thing. And so that's why we need to take this up as an entire amendment. Okay, so Kevin, do you wish to speak to your amendment beyond what you've already done? If so, please raise your hand in Zoom. Okay. And then I will be recognizing Rick Kowalczyk for a speech against.
Yes, I think we need to keep the Constitution self-consistent throughout. And if we have already said with an amendment that we ratified today that all matters of the Hugo administration have to be delegated to a subcommittee, and then we have another amendment that says the Worldcon committee itself can make determinations. It kind of violates that amendment we just passed. I think this needs to be self-consistent. If the Hugo subcommittee is the only ones that can make decisions on the Hugo Awards themselves, the nominees, their eligibility, what category they go into, we need to say that, while still saying they have to follow all the rules that are in the Constitution elsewhere in making those decisions. Over.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. And I'm going to recognize Kowalczyk for a speech against.
Mixed chairperson, thank you, Rick Kowalczyk, him. While I appreciate your comments that you don't think it's editorial, I think actually the Worldcon committee includes all of the Worldcon committee, including the chair and the subcommittees and the Hugo subcommittee. And I believe that leaving the amendment, the F.2 the way it is actually stronger should some future Worldcon chair decide to do something absurd in the future, or should we repeal some other rule that was recently passed. So I'm not in favor of this amendment. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech against the amendment. And let's see. I'm going to recognize Ron Oakes for a speech in favor, and then Kendall Bullen for a speech against.
Okay, I'm just going to be quick about this. What I see happening if we don't make this amendment, the nitpicking fly specking committee is going to come around and propose it again next year or in 2 years, and we're going to end up right back in the same place we are today. So let's just say it, save our good friends on the nitpicking fly specking committee some effort and ourselves a debate in a couple of years. I yield.
Thank you. That was a speech in favor of the amendment. I'm going to recognize, what was the name I said? Kendall Bullen for a speech against.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. Can you hear me?
Yep.
So I appreciate the sentiment, but I agree, first of all, that the Worldcon committee does include the various subcommittees, but also they could call this subcommittee anything they want, because Hugo Administration Subcommittee, it's been pointed out in the Discord, is not in the 3.1.3 changes. So that just seems to imply like, oh, if they call it something different, maybe they could. I know that's not the intention, but if people, you know, if we already, I've heard of somebody kind of using legalese to try and claim things, it just seems to me that it's safer to leave this as the Worldcon committee. They're just delegating authority, but it's still under the Worldcon committee. I yield. Thank you.
We are almost out of time on both.
Okay, yep, I was about to say. Okay, so we have basically a trivial amount of time for debate on both sides. And so let me check. Okay, so hold on, I think I have a couple parliamentary inquiries. Okay, so first of all, I have a parliamentary inquiry about whether or not it's germane because the words Hugo Administration Subcommittee don't appear in the Constitution. Specifically, the text that we added says that it will appoint a committee, but doesn't actually name the committee. That's true. It doesn't make the amendment out of order. That's just a thing the body should be aware of, that the phrase Hugo Administration Subcommittee is not in the text of the 3.1.3 that we just adopted. I also have a parliamentary inquiry about if the amendment would have effect on other places in the Constitution that use the phrase Worldcon Committee for Hugo specific rules. No, this amendment does not edit those sections of the Constitution, and would not do so. Okay, so time in favor and against on this amendment has elapsed. And so we will go ahead and move to a vote on the Hewitt Amendment to F.2. And so we can go ahead and open the votes. To be clear, this is to strike Worldcon Committee and insert Hugo Administration Subcommittee. I'm going to go ahead and leave the vote open for another 10 to 15 seconds. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. So with 52 in favor and 62 against, the amendment fails and is not adopted. And so we are back to the underlying F.2 as proposed. Olaf, how much time do we have remaining for speeches on F.2 after the amendment?
We have a total of 15 seconds remaining, with -5 of that in favor and 20 of that against.
Okay, so we'll just go ahead and say that time in favor has elapsed. So we only have time for speeches against. So I'm going to recognize Kent Bloom for a speech against F.2.
Mixed Chair, I don't think this actually solves anything, and I think it adds confusion. The range of options provided in the Constitution is much wider than most people think, and the necessity of maintaining confidentiality in the Hugo administration process makes it impossible.
Okay, thank you. So that is a speech against F.2. Okay, so time on F.2 has elapsed. Somebody remind me, did we have substantive debate in favor? Yes, we did. Sorry. Okay. Yes, we've had some substantive debate on both sides. Okay. And I do not have anybody still wishing to speak on F.2. And so we will go ahead and move to a vote. So we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of F.2, clarifying Hugo administrator's discretion. We can go ahead and close the vote with 99 in favor and 18 against. F.2 passes and will be sent to 2026 for ratification. Okay. The next item ahead of us is F.3, clarifying best graphic story or comic, found on page 32 of your agenda. Debate time on this item has been set at 4 minutes, and I'm going to recognize Nicholas White, one of the proposers, for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. Nicholas White, he, him. This and the next 3 amendments are all proposed by myself and Tammy Coxon, who have been involved with administering the Hugos for pretty much every year that a certain other person was not for the last few years. This particular proposal of the 4 simply wants to recognise how Hugo voters actually consume graphic novel content. People are generally buying albums or collections rather than individual issues. The rules at the moment could be interpreted, and we have not interpreted them, but they could be seen as cutting off eligibility the year that the last issue of a series is published, which could be the year before it is actually published in a collection when most people would buy it. We simply want to clarify that, and we need to ensure that voters are allowed to vote for the work that they have enjoyed. This will simply codify existing practice if it is passed. I will stop there, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. Don't have anybody wishing to speak against, so I'm going to recognize Gary Blogg for an amendment.
Hi, is this working, or am I still out again? Okay, it sounds, huh?
You're good, go ahead.
Can you hear me?
Yes, you're good, go ahead.
I've been a comic book reader for over 40 years now, and I've never heard of album before in reference to graphic stories or comments. I've heard of trade paperbacks, deluxe editions, compendiums. I'm not against the amendment. I'm just the term album and collection alone. I think, like trade paperbacks, compendiums, I'd just like to add those words as more of a clarification to what Nicholas and Tammy are trying to do.
Okay, so to be clear, you are wishing.
And just one last thing, I'll let Nicholas, if he wants to reword it, because it's his amendment, I'd rather him make the change, but it's just the clarification on the terms.
You're the person making the motion to amend, so that wording does need to come from you. So I understand that you're wishing to add the words after album/collection. Are you wishing to add /compendium/
trade paperbacks? Because that's how I've always.
Thank you. Hold on, I just want to make sure I'm clear on the wording of the amendment first. Okay.
Yes.
So we are adding /compendium/ trade paperback, and then I'm assuming you're also wishing to add that in the second place that language appears.
Correct.
Okay. Is there a second to this amendment? Okay, I do see several seconds. Okay, so the amendment before us is the blog amendment to F.3 to insert /compendium/ trade paperback after album/collection in both places that it exists in the amendment. And we can go ahead and open up the second order speaking pool. Gary, do you wish to speak to the amendment more than you've already Or sorry, Olaf, how much time do we have on this item? Sorry, on F dot 3 in total remaining?
We have 2.5 minutes remaining.
Okay, so we'll split that time evenly for both sides of the amendment. And Gary, do you wish to speak in favor beyond what you've already done?
No, I've said it all, and I hope people will vote in favor of it.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to recognize Chris Rose for a speech against the amendment. And then I will recognize Ron Oakes if I don't have a speech in favor by that point.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Chris Rosie Hib. I don't believe that this adds any substantive change or value to the communication clarity of the existing F3A constitutional amendment proposal, and I recommend that we just retain the original text. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm going to recognize Ron Oakes for a speech against the amendment.
I would like to point out that the Eisner Awards, which are a award similar to the Hugo Awards or perhaps similar to the Nebula Awards, I'm not entirely certain how they're voted on, but for comics and graphic novels that are awarded by Comic-Con International, a 501c3 organization, have given out Best Graphic Album since in 1998 and 1991, and since 1998, 1999, and since 1991, they have given out awards for Best Graphic Album New and Best Graphic Album Reprint. Therefore, the term album for a collection is in fact a common industry term and is recognized by a convention that is run by and for fans of comics. And so making this change is simply adding unnecessary extra text. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. That was a speech against. Okay.
We are out of time for speeches against.
Okay, we are out of time for speeches against. Going to recognize Cliff Dunn for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I concur with the colleague who proposed this. While the term album is an industry term of art, I don't see it used in most forms of advertising or discussion outside of the industry itself. And while that works for the Eisner Awards, there are a lot of casual fans who are not following those terms, and they're going to ask, "What's an album?" And they're frankly ask if was there a record included or something like that. So I think this is clarifying, and even if the language is redundant, it's not useless.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. Time against the amendment has elapsed. I have one person still wishing to speak against. Okay. I do have a couple motions to end debate, but since we don't have anybody else wishing to speak on the amendment, we're just going to go ahead and move to a vote. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on adopting the blog amendment to F.3, which would be to add /compendium/trade paperback after album/collection in both places it appears in the text of F.3. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote with 53 in favor and 67 against. The amendment fails and is not adopted. And so we are back to the underlying F.3 as proposed. Olaf, how much time do we have remaining on F.3 at this point?
We have 50 seconds remaining against and no time remaining in favor.
Okay. So there is no time remaining for speeches in favor on F.3 and 50 seconds remaining against. I do not have anybody wishing to speak against. And I have no other folks wishing to make motions related to F.3. And so we will go ahead and move to a vote. And so we can open the vote on the adoption of F.3, clarifying best graphic story or comic. And we can go ahead and close the vote with 108 in favor and 11 against. F.3 passes and will be sent to 2026 for ratification. That moves us to F.4, clarifying best series, which can be found on page 32 of your agenda. And debate time for this item has been set to 4 minutes. And I'm going to recognize Nicholas White, one of the makers, for a speech in favor.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairperson. I should say that the other maker of the resolution is currently in the train station and is following the debate but not able to participate. This is very simple. It's simply intended to resolve ambiguous wording in the Constitution in line with the way that administrators have actually been administering it for the last few years. I hope we don't want to go and refight some of the discussions that we've previously had about what should and shouldn't be eligible for the Best Series award. I think that has been resolved. Frankly, I would prefer to simply abolish it, but I've lost that argument. I accept it. If we're going to administer it, let's administer it properly, and let's make sure that the instructions to future administrators are clear. I'm happy to answer any questions about this, and I think I should probably stop there. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you. That was a speech in favor of F.4. I don't have anybody who has submitted a request to speak on F.4. I'm gonna give you all like 5 more seconds. Okay. Okay, seeing that there's nobody else wishing to speak on F.4, we will go ahead and move to a vote. And so we can open the vote on the adoption of F.4, clarifying best series. And we can go ahead and close the vote with 103 in favor and 8 against. F.4 passes and will be sent to 2026 for ratification. Okay. That brings us to F.5, clarifying the best dramatic presentation categories, which can be found on page 34 of your agenda. Debate time on this item has been set to 4 minutes. And I'm going to recognize Nicholas White as the maker of her speech in favor.
Thank you again, Mr. Chairperson. Still Nicholas White, still he, him. Again, this is simply to bring the Constitution more clearly into line with the way that the Hugos have been administered. It's settled practice now that that we do not allow both a series as a whole and episodes from that series to be respectively Best Dramatic Presentation long form and Best Dramatic Presentation short form on the final ballot. This simply makes that clear and offers guidance to Hugo administrators as to how that should be done. There has been a question as to whether in that case we should consult the TV studios who are concerned with making those series. Our very strong recommendation as Hugo administrators is that we should not. That the decisions as to what gets onto the Hugo ballot should be based on the votes cast by fans and not based on the priorities of TV studio executives. And on top of that, there is the potential for inequity, given that the TV studio executives themselves may not necessarily have the best interests of the writers of individual episodes at heart. So I hope that this will be adopted. As I say, it simply reflects current practice, clarifies the Constitution, doesn't actually change the way in which the awards are administered, but makes it clearer why we're making the decisions that we do. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Thank you. That was the speech in favor of F.5. I'm going to recognize Linda Deneroff for a parliamentary inquiry.
Is it legitimate to ask the maker of the motion to explain the reasoning of 3.9.4? I'm not sure I understand what that's intended to do.
Yes, it is legitimate to ask that. I do not see anybody else wishing to speak in the queue. And so given that, if Nicholas White wishes to speak to this a second time, I will allow that.
Thank you very much, Mixed Chairperson, and thank you very much, Ms. Deneroff, for the question, and you have looked at this as well. So the situation is, when you calculate the Hugo ballot, you look at the top 6 nominees, and in general, they will become finalists, right? What I'm saying is that if you have already, if then one of those finalists decides that they do not wish to accept, you have to go down to the 7th and the 8th and the 9th and so on. What I'm saying is that if, say, you have a TV series that is already qualified in the top 6 in long form, then when you're going through the replacement episodes in short form, you do not go for the episodes from that TV series. You pass over them and on to the next one because the TV series is already in on long form. This affects the way that the administrators make the decision, and vice versa. If you have episodes of a TV series in short form, then the series as a whole will not be eligible as a replacement candidate in long form.
We are now out of time.
I beg your pardon. Thank you.
So that takes us out of time for speeches in favor. We do still have time remaining for speeches against, as nobody has spoken there yet. So I'm going to recognize Rafe Richards for a speech against, and then if there is still time remaining, Kate Secor for a speech against.
Next chairperson, thank you. Rafe Richards, he, him. I'm merely going to note that we have literally just voted in Best Series that an individual element of a series can be nominated in a separate category to the series, and that this is in effect incoherent behaviour between the two categories. While it may reflect the ways that the administrators have been administering the respective categories in the past, I nonetheless submit it is incoherent, and we may perhaps wish to reconsider that, and we certainly should not codify it. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a speech against. I will remind folks that if you look at F.4 that we just adopted, part of what F.4 does is that it moves text out of 3.8 into 3.3. And so whereas this, which is I believe that's the Best Series section. I should have looked that up before I said words. And that this amendment is to 3.8 and specifically about this language specifically refers to Best Dramatic Presentation. The language in 3.4 was moved to specifically be about Best Series. Okay. So I believe that the speech person I said I was going to recognize has retracted their speech. One moment. So I have a parliamentary inquiry regarding F.5 and F.6. I think this might not be germane until F.6, but I'm not sure. So I'm going to go ahead and recognize Alan Fleming for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you.
You are right in that it is not germane until F5 passes.
Yeah,
can we take it up as soon as it does?
I really appreciate it.
Sure.
I'm glad
I will recognize you upon the adoption of F.5 should it be adopted. Okay.
We'll get you some food in a little bit. This meeting should finish.
Okay, I'm going to recognize Kevin Black for a speech against, which might also be a motion. I'm not sure.
Probably going to be pushing really bad math class, but like that's fine. Hi, thank you, Mixed Chairperson Kevin Black, he, him. I guess I'll start with the motion. If it's in order, I would like to make a motion to refer this to a committee.
Oh my gosh, that's a great game. To refer it to committee to report back to the next
To
session
report-
of this year's meeting or to next year's business meeting.
I mean, I guess it could be the next session or it could be next year, but at
I
any
do
rate,
need you to pick.
Okay, how about next session of this meeting?
Okay, so it has been F.5 to a committee to be to report back to the next session. So per our standing rules, that committee would be made up of Nicholas White and Tammy Coxon as the makers of the original motion. And I would also appoint Kevin Black to it as the maker of the motion
I don't know how well the grill
refer.
works, but the metal around it tries to keep it
And I'm going to appoint Nicholas White to as chair of this committee if it passes, and other folks can get added to it if Nicholas approves. So that is the motion to refer. So this is a motion to refer to committee to report back to the next session. Is there a second to the motion to refer F.5 to committee? Okay, I do see 3 seconds. Okay, so that is properly before us. Olav, do we have any time remaining on F.5?
We have 1 minute and 15 remaining against, but no time remaining for.
Okay, so we'll split that remaining time. So we'll split that minute for the motion to refer. Kevin, are you wanting to speak to your motion to refer further? If so, please raise your hand in the Zoom. Okay.
Yes, I think it's not appropriate to put advisory text in the Constitution as opposed to binding text. I also think that this is convoluted, hard to read, and for the points others mentioned about potential conflicts with others, I think it needs more work.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so I have a point of order about what the charge of the committee is. I believe that speech just clarified what the charge of the committee would be. So this is to basically look at rewording it to clarify and perhaps look at striking some of the advisory text. Okay, I'm going to recognize Perry Ann Lurie for a speech against referring to committee.
Am I unmuted?
Yep, you're good.
Okay, Perry and Lurie, she, her. I don't think the committee is going to come up with anything substantially different, and I think we should just vote on this now.
Okay, thank you. That is a speech against the motion to refer to committee. I don't have anybody else wishing to speak in favor of referring to committee. So I'm going to recognize Ron Oakes for a speech against referring to committee.
Ron Oakes, he, him. Short answer is I trust Nicholas and I trust Tammy. And having worked as a database administrator on Hugo's in the past, where things were unclear from the Constitution and I had to ask instructions, having clear instructions for how to deal with edge cases, corner cases is going to be useful. And so I think that having these edge cases defined is useful. Thank you. I yield.
Thank you. That was a speech against the motion to refer. I have a parliamentary inquiry about sort of the timing on things. So If the motion to refer passes, then that committee would report back at the next session, and then we would take up F.5 again at that session and handle whatever the committee suggests or doesn't suggest.
I like it
and
the way they
then
did this time.
And then that's when the final vote on F.5 would happen, assuming there is a final vote and it doesn't get dispensed with another way. Do we have any, I don't think we have any time remaining to speak against the motion to refer. Is that correct?
We do not.
We do not, okay.
We don't.
Okay, I don't have anybody else wishing to speak in favor of the motion to refer. I have one person still wishing to speak against and no other folks wishing to make motions. Okay, so we are going to go ahead and move to, okay, sorry, one moment. Okay, so we have a motion to amend. So we have a motion from Kayla Allen to amend the motion to refer to committee to change it from refer back to the next session to refer back to the 2026 WSFS business meeting. So this would change the charge to, instead of the committee reporting back this year, reporting back next year. Is there a second to the motion to amend the referral to committee to change the charge to report back next year? Okay, there is a second. We have a trivial amount of time remaining for debate, and so I'm going to go ahead and have us move to a vote. So to be clear, right now we have F.5, which makes the changes you've seen on the screen. A motion has been made to refer F.5 to committee, and that motion was for them to refer back at the next session, so the 25th session, the session on July 25th. This is a motion to amend that so that instead of referring back at the next session, the committee would refer back to the 2026 business meeting. And that would have the effect of F.5 no longer being in front of us if the amendment to the referral passes. And if the referral passes, then F.5 would no longer be in front of us for this year's meeting, and the committee would be reporting back to 2026. And that is when F.5, under a different number, presumably, would be back in front of the business meeting. So we are going to go ahead and move to a vote on the motion to amend the referral to committee. So to be clear, this vote is just about whether we are changing the proposed referral to report back next year instead of this year. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on amending the motion to refer. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 43 in favor and 79 against, the motion to amend does not pass. So we are back to the motion to refer F.5 to committee to report back to the next session. Time to speak on this item has still elapsed, and so we are going to move to a vote on the motion to refer. And so we can go ahead and open up the vote on the motion to refer F.5 to committee to report back to the next session. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote. With 42 in favor and 80 against, the motion to refer does not pass, and so F.5 is not referred, and so we are back to the underlying F.5 as proposed. I do not have anybody still wishing to speak on F.5, and time to speak on F.5 has elapsed. I have, I'm talking to my parliamentarian right now. I believe that's still the same thing. That's what I'm recognizing right after this. Okay, so.
Jesse, there was a second inquiry. I put it at the top.
Right. I'm pretty sure that's just Alan rephrasing the PI that he's going to make. Alan, if I need to recognize you for a new parliamentary inquiry, will you please raise your hand in the Zoom? Okay, not seeing that. I'm going to assume that my understanding is correct. Okay, so we are going to move to a vote on the adoption of F.5. And so we can go ahead and open the vote on the adoption of F.5. We can go ahead and close the vote with 92 in favor and 34 against. F.5 passes and will be sent to 2026 for ratification. Okay, I'm going to recognize Alan Fleming for a parliamentary inquiry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. This is possibly due to slightly infelicitous drafting of F5. Is my understanding correct that the amendment to F5 inserts words after the existing words of 3.8.6, which would kind of make sense if F6, which is now under consideration, deletes the existing words of 3.8.6, leaving the words that we have just added in F5?
Okay, so I believe that the answer to your question is sort of covered in the discussion in the agenda. So F.5 makes some changes to 3.8.6. Or let me check. Hold on. Let me make sure I'm looking at both the new agenda and also, there we go. Okay, so right. Okay, so F.5 adds a new 3.8.6 to the Constitution. And so F.6, so then the existing 3.8.6 in the Constitution becomes 3.8.7, and that's what F.6 is editing. So to be clear, our rules say that section numbers are not like considered substantive unless, as we did previously, we're using them to completely move where things are in the Constitution. And so the secretary would update, if F6 passes as well, the secretary would update the section numbers to be accurate and refer to the correct things. So it doesn't make F.6 out of order or create new language that needs to be cleaned up. Okay, seeing that you've lowered your hand, I'm going to assume that that sufficiently answers your question. Okay, so the item in front of us is F.6, clarifying nominee diversity, which is on page 35 of your agenda. And debate time for this item has been set to 4 minutes. You are wishing to speak to F.6, you can go ahead and submit those requests to speak, and I'm going to recognize Nicholas White as the maker of the motion for a speech in favor.
Thank you, Mixed Chairperson. Nicholas White, he, him, and I completely agree with the ruling that you just made. That was certainly my intent, and I'm sorry if I didn't express it well enough. The current section 3.8.6 on nominee diversity is intended to prevent more than 3 items by the same creators appearing on the ballot in the same category. This has happened only twice since it came into force. As Hugo administrators, Tammy Coxon and I believe that the current wording is not clear and also doesn't take into account the actual operation of the e pluribus Hugo counting system. Our proposed wording clarifies this, I hope. And in particular, it makes it clear that in the event, as we were discussing earlier, in the event that you're filling up vacant spaces in a ballot caused by withdrawals, that you can't then choose a third TV episode from the same series or a third story by the same author, which might then come up onto the thing. I should say, by weird coincidence, I was the Hugo administrator in both of the years that this has happened. I hope it doesn't happen again. Frankly, I would scrap the entire section if I could, but that's not germane. Thank you very much, Mixed Chairperson.
Thank you. That was a speech in favor. I do not have anybody else who has submitted a request to speak on this item. I'm going to give you a little bit more. Well, I think Nicholas spoke for long enough that folks would have had an opportunity to submit. So since I don't see anybody else wishing to speak on F.6, we will go ahead and move to a vote. And so we can open up the vote on the adoption of F.6. Okay, we can go ahead and close the vote. With 99 in favor and 9 against, F.6 passes and will be sent to 2026 for ratification. Okay, the next item ahead of us is F.7, clarifying WSFS membership rights, which is on page 36 of your agenda. Debate time for this item has been set to 6 minutes. And I'm going to recognize Kat Corbetti to speak in favor as one of the original proposers. I can hear you, but you are quite soft if you want to maybe get closer to your microphone.
Hello, 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. Hello?
I mean, I can hear you. My speakers are really loud. I don't know if other people can.
Okay. Let me check the Discord. Can people hear me? Nobody's saying anything. Okay.
Okay. I have somebody saying they can hear you, so I think you're good.
Okay, great. Okay. So I originally wrote this to clarify what comes with a WSFS membership. Now, we have renamed a WSFS membership into a supporting membership, so I suppose that will be reflected in that. But ostensibly, what I wanted to do was to lay out exactly what you can do as someone with that membership. Everything that entails that was in different places in the Constitution, just bringing it all into one place, and also laying the groundwork for potentially allowing WSFS members, supporting members, to attend this business meeting if it is virtual without needing a separate attending supplement. Because they should be able to vote on things even if they're not coming to the con at all. Even if they're not even virtually attending, they should be able to have a say in what's going on in the society and in the business that we deal with. So yeah, I think that and the discussion in the agenda carries everything. So I yield.
Okay, thank you. So that was a speech in favor of F.7. I do see a parliamentary inquiry about how E.1 affects this amendment. So to be clear, I think maybe they meant E.2, but so to be clear, the language that is in the Constitution with the language about in E.1 about death or whatever the exact phrasing is. There it is. So I believe so the 1.5.3 in this proposal is that section. And so the amended text that we passed for E.1 is what would go in the new in 1.5.3 that's in front of us. So we don't need to amend F.7 to reflect E.1. We also don't need, as Kat said, to reflect F.7, or sorry, amend F.7 to reflect E.2. That updating the supporting, attending, WSFS, supplement, etc. language would be editorial, and we will take care of that. Okay. Okay, I have another parliamentary inquiry from Linda Deneroff, so I'm going to recognize Linda for that.
Hang on. Mr. Chairman, I believe there's a misunderstanding here. I think 1.5.3 should go away. Whether you are a supporting member or an attending member of the convention, you are a WSFS member. That was the way it has always been until we split them. We've now reversed the split, and everyone who buys a membership of any sort to the Worldcon is a WSFS member. Therefore, I think 1.5.3
Linda,
can go away.
I'm sorry, this does not. You were recognized for a parliamentary inquiry.
Well, that's my inquiry. Do you believe that 1.5.3 should go away based on the fact that everyone who has bought a membership in the Worldcon is a WSFS member?
Well, okay. So first of all, no, they're no longer WSFS members. They're supporting members because we changed that. Okay. Sorry, I'm wanting to make sure I'm looking at all the things I need to look at to answer this question. Okay. So, in the WSFS Constitution, as of an hour and a half ago, we have a section, 1.5.2, or sorry, yes, 1.5.2, that talks about when WSFS memberships or supporting memberships can be transferred. We ratified a change to that language to modify it to basically expand and be clear that when somebody dies, it goes to their estate. The language in the current Constitution and in E.1 refers to WSFS memberships, which we then also adopted language saying that we're changing that back to supporting membership. This proposal includes, so it takes 1.5.2 and adds a bunch of text to it, and then takes the section about non-transferability and puts it into a new section as opposed to just making the paragraph longer. So the change to E.1, the change that we made in E.1 to basically expand that language about transferring to include things like to be clear about the, purchasing when providing name or duplicate membership. That's what the new 1.5.3 would be. If there are folks that think that the change that we made to E.1 is such that there should no longer be 1.5.3 in this amendment, then folks can make a proposal, can make an amendment or propose an amendment to do that. But as it currently stands, my understanding of this in my ruling is that it's just taking that current part of 1.5.2 and splitting it out into new 1.5.3, and that's fine and is allowed. If my parliamentarian wants to jump in and tell me I'm wrong, he can. But nope, he doesn't want to. Great. Okay. I understand this is confusing because we have like 3 or 4 like interacting things happening here. The underlying thing is that F.7 is not trying to change the text in that section of the Constitution. It's just splitting it out into a separate section and preserving the language that's already there when it does so. And so regardless of what we did to the language in that section in E.1, that's still what F.7 would be doing. Okay. So I believe we had a speech in favor of F.7 and then some parliamentary inquiries, and that's what that just was. Okay. Let me look at what folks have submitted. Okay, I have like, I think 6 motions to amend. I'm going to recognize Sean Kirk for a motion. Sean, I believe, are you unmuted? Sean, can you unmute? I think you're still muted.
Sorry, there you go.
Okay,
Can you hear me?
Yep.
My concern with this is that does Worldcon really want to allow?
What motion are you wanting to make, Sean?
What's that?
Were you wanting to make a motion, or were you wanting to make a speech?
Speech. Sorry. Yep.
Okay. Are you wishing to speak against the?
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, that's in order.
Okay. Does Worldcon really want to allow the bar of entry to change the WSFS Constitution to be, $85? I mean, at the end of the day, I know that we want to lower the bar, but I think that we'll find ourselves in the same predicament that we were with in 2015 at some point in time with constitutional amendments, and that's it.
Okay, thank you. So that was a speech against F.7. Okay, I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn for a motion.
Mr. Chair, given both the language is a bit of a mess versus the 2E amendments, and the fact that we have nearly a half dozen apparent amendments in front of us, or people trying to propose them, I want to move to refer this to committee to report back next week to consider those amendments and potentially clean up the language so that we're not all getting a headache with what this does versus doesn't do.
Okay, so that is a motion to refer F.7 to committee to report back in the next session. I see several seconds. And so the membership of this committee would be the original proposers of F.7, Cliff Dunn as the maker of the motion to refer, and anybody else that I would probably be making Kat Corbetti the chair of this committee, and so anybody else that Kat would want to appoint to it. So the motion is the item before us is to refer F.7 to committee. Olav, how much time do we have remaining on F.7 in total?
In total, we have 3.5 minutes remaining.
Okay, I'm going to. Is there an objection to moving to an immediate vote on the motion to refer? Okay, I do not see an objection, and so we are going to immediately move to a vote on the motion to refer. And so we can open up the vote on the motion to refer F.7 to committee to report back to the next session. And we can go ahead and close the vote. With 97 in favor and 8 against, the motion passes and F.7 is referred to committee. So the membership of this committee will be Kat Corbetti as chair, Christina Forsyth, Cliff Dunn, and anybody else that Kat Corbetti wishes to appoint to the committee. I believe that Kat is active in the Discord, and so you can let them know there if you would like to help out with this committee. Otherwise, you can email businessmeeting@seattlein2025.org, and we will get your name to Kat. Okay, we are at 12:28. I don't. Okay. We are going to go ahead and move. I'm not ending the meeting before the half-hour mark, given where we are. And as the agenda said, the meeting may run up to 15 minutes late. So we're still within the announced time. So we're going to move to F.8, 14 Days of Christmas, which is found on page 38 of your agenda. Debate time at this item has been set at 4 minutes. And I'm going to recognize Cliff Dunn as the maker of the motion for the proposal for a speech in favor, and anybody else wishing to speak to F.8 can submit their requests.
Thank you, Mixed Chair. To make a long story short, there have been issues with either comics coming out with dubious street dates around at the start of the year, and or one theater releases, most notably Snow White back in the 30s. There was actually discussion as to whether it was eligible for the retro Hugos for 1939, if that ever came up. So I think it would be best to give everybody the benefit of the doubt that if something comes out in the last 2 weeks of the year, it didn't get a broad release unless it made the quote-unquote long list. That is the 6 nominees plus the 9 or 10 works that are also listed. And we just presume that people didn't realize it was out, rather than people not realizing it was out and only finding out when something is disqualified the following year that it had a slightly earlier than realized release date.
Okay, thank you. That was a speech in favor. I'm going to recognize Nicholas White for a speech against. And then I'm going to recognize Rafe Richards for a speech in favor.
Mixed Chairperson, thank you very much. Nicholas White, he, him. We're given 2 examples where this may have happened or may not have happened, which to me isn't actually a very large number on which, for a basis on which to change the rules. This will be difficult to implement. It will be burdensome on Hugo administrators, and if it's for a problem that barely exists. It will lead to more mistakes being made, and that will inevitably damage the reputation of the Hugos. Please vote against this amendment. Thank you, Mr. Chairperson.
Okay, that was a speech against F.8. And so I'm going to recognize Rafe Richards for a speech in favor of F.8. And then I'll be recognizing Ron Oakes after that if there's still time remaining.
Thank you, Mr. Chairperson. I will merely say that if this passes, we may see less motions to extend eligibility under 3.4.3 in future business meetings. And on that grounds alone, I think this is worth voting for. Thank you.
Thank you. That was a speech in favor. Don't think that used all the remaining time. So I'm going to go ahead and recognize, oh, nope, I do now have a speech against. My apologies. I'm going to recognize Ron Oakes for a speech against. Did we flip?
Yes, we flipped. My main content didn't change, just which side it's on. I see this as not solving the problem, or not solving the problem optimally. If we want to solve this problem, we should move the date where we cut off the eligibility of the Hugo nominations further from the date we start the Hugo voting, to give people time to actually see, acquire, read the Hugo Awards, the potential Hugo nominees, the potential Hugo finalists, before the time we actually open voting, instead of doing this. Yes, we will always have these edge cases of, was this available before or after the date? It doesn't matter what we do. Those edge cases will always exist. Let's give a longer gap between the cutoff and when people can actually start saying, okay, this is when I have to start submitting my nominations. That's the solution, not this. I yield.
That was a speech against F.8. Olav, how are we doing on time? Olaf, you're muted if you're trying to talk.
We are out of time for speeches against, and we have 50, that's 50 seconds for speeches in favor.
Okay. I'm going to recognize Linda Robinette for a speech in favor. And if you can raise your hand in the chat and we can ask you to unmute.
Can you hear me? I really,
Yep.
I
can
do
hear
not
you.
see the normal thing where I raise my hand in Zoom,
We
so I
can
don't
hear
know
you.
where it is. Okay, then I'll just talk without video. It doesn't really matter. I would have loved to have voted for God Still a Zero, or whatever the name of it was. These things come out at the last week of the year. They play on 2 theaters. No one can see them. I think we should allow a little bit more scotch room. People are trying to put their works out so it qualifies for the Academy Awards. I'm speaking specifically of movies. That's where I see the main problems, not so much in books. I don't read comics. I can see them doing the same thing in comics, though. Let's get this thing out right at Christmas time. So I agree with this amendment.
Okay, thank you.
We are out of time.
Okay, so we are out of time on F.8. We have nobody else wishing to speak in favor, 3 folks wishing to speak against. There has been a motion to postpone indefinitely submitted, but time has elapsed. I will also remind the body that our rules automatically assign 4 minutes of debate time to postpone indefinitely, and that postpone indefinitely requires a 2/3 vote to pass. So for proposals that already have 4 minutes or fewer of debate time, postpone indefinitely would not save us any time. Okay. So seeing that, okay, so like I said, we still have a few folks wishing to speak against and no other items, but debate time has expired, so we will go ahead and move to a vote on the adoption of F.8. And so we can open the vote on the adoption of F.8. Okay, and we can go ahead and close the vote with 38 in favor and 77 against. F.8 fails. Okay, we are a little bit past time, and the next items that we have up, I don't really want to try to take up F.9 and not F.10. So we are going to go ahead and call it for the day. So at the adjournment of this session, we will be opening up the balloting for the Mark Protection Committee and the Trial Committee. These ballots will be open until Monday at noon Pacific. Once the election is open, you'll see a WSFS Elections tab become available on the sidebar that has the ballots and the instructions for how to cast your ballot. For even more detailed instructions, there is a ballot instructions PDF that will become viewable in the Documents tab. The LumiTech does have to turn it on, so if it's not immediately viewable, give it like, a couple minutes. We are going to go ahead and leave the Zoom open for about 15 minutes after adjournment in case folks have questions about the balloting process that would be more helpful to answer verbally. So you can go ahead and use the request to speak function if you have questions. You can submit it as whatever category you want. And we also, as always, have the help desk channel and stuff in the Discord. Okay, so with that, we are in recess, we are adjourned until the next meeting on the 25th, where we will take up the report back from F.6, and then, and it wasn't whichever one it was, I think it was F.6, the thing that got referred, F.7, and then move forward with the rest of our Fs. And so we are adjourned until that time, and the LumiTech will go ahead and work on getting the ballots open. Thank you.